Welcome, everybody, to another Rattlesnake TV debate night. We have got a very exciting one. I've been trying to line this up for a long time and very keen to get this going. We have got Halsey English versus Haas, and today the debate topic is going to be, does America need Marxism, or does America need Marxist theory? Now, the way that the debate is going to work is that both of these gentlemen will have 5 minutes to make an opening statement. Then we will kick it into 60 minutes of open dialogue, and we'll finish it off by another closing statement of around 2 minutes. But you guys can stretch the time if you need to just a little bit. Rules of the debate is that if there's too much over talking going on, then I'm going to have to moderate this. But generally, I'm pretty hands off with moderating. So I think that these guys will be able to regulate the conversation pretty well. But otherwise, I think that with that, gentlemen and audience, hold on to your hat and let's get ready to rumble.
And now, for the thousands in attendance, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so we're going to kick it off with Haas, who has the affirmative position. So Haas, 5 minutes on the clock for your opening statement.
Okay, sure. So, the United States of America right now is at a decisive turning point, and it's experiencing rapid changes over the course of the past few decades, at least within that time frame, that have completely disoriented our society. It has proven to be a significant test for the integrity of our state and our nation in general, because it has also corresponded to a degree of polarization we have not seen since the first American Civil War. And these changes and transformations that have been happening in the United States should primarily be understood through the lens of changes at the fundamental level of economic relationships, at the level of how people are getting by, how they're, putting food on the table, how they're paying rent. And this is all related to the dynamics of international trade and international trade relationships that have been fundamentally transformed since the post-war period, and furthermore, to an even greater degree, following the period of globalization, the outsourcing of manufacturing jobs and the forms of subsistence and income that used to correspond to the American middle class are gone. They're being wiped out. They're being eliminated. Our country's being crippled with debt. And meanwhile, we're on the cusp of a new so-called fourth industrial revolution that's going to even deepen and further the process of disrupting the norms, the conventions, and the traditional ways of life that people are used to, that they need to support their families, that they need to get by, that they need to make a living. And I think now more than ever, as we're witnessing, and I think everyone can agree with this, a fundamental historical change, a fork in the road. There's no going back. There's no avoiding it. A change in general, in history, in the history of this country. We need to have a clear idea about what's going on. We need to have a clear comprehension of the laws governing this development. We need to know why it's happening, how it led to this. And in my view, Marxism best addresses these questions, because Marxism is the science of historical change. Marxism does not attribute the changes in history and the changes in developments that occur in pre-industrial, industrial societies and across other historical epochs to ideas, whether they're correct or incorrect. Marxism does not say that the reason things are happening now is because bad people are doing bad things. It neither attributes this to good people doing good things. Marxism allows us to comprehend that at a fundamental structural and systemic level, there are contradictions. There are contradictions which are unavoidable regardless of the ideas that we have in our head. And they're related to how society is structured at the level of our relationships to production. The production of our livelihoods, the production of our communities, the production of our existence at the most fundamental and even physical level. Marxism does not seek to, in the first place, impose some kind of magical solution to all of society's problems. Marxism, in the first place, attempts to have a scientific comprehension of what is going on now. And only on the basis of that analysis does Marxism come to the conclusion of where we are headed and what is the logical conclusion of the current historical moment we're in. And when we awaken to that conclusion, when we awaken to the realization of where we are and where we're headed, we have clarity, which is exactly what we're lacking right now in this country. Everyone is witnessing the profound changes that are happening at every level of society, and they're trying to explain them in unscientific ways, in mystified ways. They're trying to resort to supernatural explanations. They're trying to resort to explanations which inflame racial and ethnic divisions. People are resorting to conclusions which pit them against their neighbors and blame them on other people having the wrong ideas or the right ideas. They're trying to blame and lay all the fault on politicians like Donald Trump, as though our country was just completely fine and perfect before Trump came along. And the population has a clear general idea that there is a ruling class, that there is this elite that's ruling.
Let them keep going. I don't mind.
Oh, am I over the thing?
Yeah,
I don't mind if you want to let them keep going.
My bad. We can just end it there. Yeah, plenty to start off of. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Halsey, 5 minutes on the clock. Let's go.
I agree with you that there is a fundamental change in America, but I think that what you're trying to explain as being Marxism, as being a determinant of what those different things are going to be, is both false and it's misleading in general. So with the birth of the USSR, communism had a viable face and a nation, and it had a viable idea on how communism was going to be implemented. In recognizing that we're facing an enemy that was more industrially strong, more intellectually powerful, and more resource-laden, they created a new type of system that was also embraced by communist China. It's been embraced by various movements around the world. And it's called asymmetrical warfare. That's what Marxism is, asymmetrical warfare. So let me explain the definition. Asymmetrical warfare is a type of conflict where opposing forces have significantly different military capabilities, strategies, and tactics, often involving unconventional tactics by a weaker force to exploit vulnerabilities of a stronger opponent. This is what Marxism has used to gain its foothold in areas which have seen division, whether it be racial, economic, national, or any other type of division. Today, we see a new name that's added to this. It's called the resistance. You can see it in the Middle East with the axis of resistance encompassing Lebanon, Syria, Iran, the Houthis in Yemen, and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and the various Palestinian factions that encompass that organization. They use the term resistance here in America too. The Democratic Party uses it when they want to claim that they're facing an asymmetrical element in the forces of Donald Trump and the billionaire class. They claim that this enemy is unable to be reached through typical legal means, so needs to be resisted at every level, both legal and illegal, leading to mass chaos, loss of property, loss of life, and many other negatives that you can see. How would have you believe that this type of revolutionary mission to promote Marxism to its logical conclusion of a universal communism or a universal Marxism is all a smokescreen? It's why they like to call themselves resistance agents or revolutionaries. It's because what they don't want to call themselves is what they are, which is chaos agents. This has openly been expressed by Haas in his references to his MAGA communism. MAGA communism is an idea that Donald Trump leads a movement of people who are fundamentally opposed to the structures of American society. They're the most apt, the most likely, and the most available to be revolutionaries in this country because they tend not to trust the powers that be, and they tend to support different types of revolutionary ideas. Some would call them conspiracy theories, whatever it may be. But this isn't the case. The people that support Trump, the people that support MAGA, are all about returning America to a time and period where our empire stretched from one end of the world to the other and was seen as a force of good, if nothing just by Americans, but usually by other nations as well. The type of people who in the past we've labeled as revolutionaries and resistance fighters, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, the Kim dynasty in North Korea, These are the people that Has is talking about when he's talking about revolutionaries. Now, what do all these people have in common? They became incredibly rich from their form of Marxism, while their people became incredibly poor and started starving. They want to point out the victories that they've won against Israel, against America, against whatever power they happen to be fighting, but they tend to leave out the two greatest victories that they have because they understand what it means to try to explain this to people. Those are in Rhodesia and South Africa. Both those revolutionary movements brought into power Robert Mugabe and Nelson Mandela, communist revolutionaries who immediately started implementing Marxist policies when they were able to liberate their countries from what they considered racial discrimination. They used terrorism and international influence in order to do this, and were able to use those terms conclusively when they took power until the infrastructure started to fail. And then you saw the immediate return to racial strife, murder, and terror in order to scapegoat those who they felt were unavoidably capitalist or unavoidably able to be scapegoated, such as Jews and whites. Those populations were completely expelled from Zimbabwe, which is what used to be Rhodesia. And in South Africa, they would more likely than not leave if they could, but a lot of them don't have any place to go. You see that they're being targeted by the ruling class in both those countries for murder, and their murderers are very rarely punished as they steal their property. Politicians run for office screaming, kill the Boer, kill the white man, kill the people that have done you wrong. This is a revolutionary. This is resistance. I'm sure you saw it when you were at Nasrallah's funeral a couple months ago, who you praised as being a revolutionary and a resistance leader, a man who bombs children, a man who openly kills American soldiers, a man who targets American interests throughout the world. These are not the people that we want to see. Okay, I'll stop.
All right, cool. I should have done this before, fellas, but I forgot at the start. But you guys want to really quickly give like a 10-second introduction to yourself and what you believe, starting with Haz?
I'm Haz Al-Din, and I'm the executive chairman of the American Communist Party. I'm also host of the Infrared Show, and that's all.
And Halsey?
I am Halsey English. I am an American patriot. I am a father. I'm a family man. I have a YouTube channel that I rarely use anymore. I've been gravitating more towards Twitter Spaces, and that's where you can find me. We're happy to be talking about anything that comes up, and I'm very much looking forward to this debate. By the way,
and
also afterwards, we'll be hosting like kind of like afterwards, we're going to have like a bit of an after party Twitter Space. Haz, you're more than welcome to come. Same with you, Jake.
Cool.
Raylan Stark is going to be hosting. It's on my feed.
All right, awesome. Should have done it at the start, but
sorry about that.
No, that's my bad. So, guys, also we're going to be reading out some super chats at the end, but as the debate goes, they're just going to be on screen. So, with that, fellas, I'm going to kick it into open dialogue.
Obviously, you said many things that I would object to, but wasn't our country, the United States of America, founded by a revolution?
It was founded by a revolution, but it was founded by a revolution of the aristocratic class. There weren't very many people that were in poverty. There weren't very many people that didn't have skin in the game when they formed the revolution. In fact, they formed the revolution over things that were almost kind of nonsense, like the tax on tea and the taxes of the Stamp Act were hardly even implemented. It was just the idea of it that pissed them off so bad. They wanted freedom from Britain, which is what they fought for. It wasn't a revolutionary thing until they decided that the type of government they were going to implement was going to be a constitutional form of government with guaranteed rights.
But once what was revolutionary. Right. But once they did decide that, the yeoman, the small farmer, was actually the decisive element to carry that revolution to victory. Otherwise, these aristocrats that you're talking about wouldn't have gone anywhere.
But that would assume that those small farmers were able to fund the war themselves, which they weren't. In fact, there was many times where the American Revolution...
You can have as much funds as you want, but if you don't have manpower and people willing to actually die and be martyred for the cause, which many of the American revolutionary soldiers were, in fact, believing in the ideal, believing in independence as a principle, you couldn't have won that war. It was a revolutionary war.
Yeah, but again, with the people having nothing but sticks and stones to throw at the other side, they have a very unlikely possibility of winning as well. It was capitalist war bonds that funded the war and that were made it possible for them to die. That's why it says in the Declaration of Independence, to this we pledge our fortunes and everything else to this revolution. It didn't mention that they just focused their energy and their idealism. It said they also focused their lives and their material possessions.
Right. They could have financed the war to buy arms all as much as they wanted, but if you didn't have the manpower with the right morale to fight that war, could not have been won. And
So
that
they
was
didn't
only
technically
because it
have
was
that. They had the support of about 15% of the country when the revolution was first proposed. Washington actually told the people up in Boston to knock it off, that they were antagonizing Britain in a
that's
way that they
and
shouldn't
and
be
that
antagonizing.
just goes to show that there was such a revolutionary fervor and ferment already existing in what was at that time the 13 colonies, that indeed it was the popular majority that actually was the material force that was decisive. Now, when it comes to the finances and the strategizing and the planning, most revolutions taken at that level are carried out by minorities. But if you
Mhm.
don't have the support of the popular majority, if they're not fully on board, and if they're not going to be the momentum of the revolution and the force of the revolution, right, then nothing moves, nothing happens. So
But the
to say
revolution
that
in
is just
America,
a
but you're
wealthy
using a bad terminology. You're using a bad statement because it's not true. There wasn't a popular majority in America that was for revolution or independence. It was a minority, in fact, very small one. When
But
they
you just
decided to
said
go
that
to war, they
Washington had to
decided
tell people to knock it off. That kind of suggests that there was a popular stratum in this country that
no, it
was
was a
not.
very small revolt in Boston that encompassed about 200 people. It wasn't much at all. That committed the Tea Party and all that.
Revolts rarely begin with everyone simultaneously rising up. Every revolution in history, however popular it is, always begins with minorities who are willing to take a stand. In a slave revolt, the majority of
Mhm.
slaves yearn for emancipation. They yearn for
Sure.
independence and dignity. Sometimes it takes one guy to stand up to inspire everybody else to do
I
the
would say it
same. And
always does. I would say it always
absolutely.
does.
And that was the case for the American Revolution, like any other revolution in history. It doesn't negate the fact that this was a
Again, that's not
popular
true.
revolution.
No, that's not true. It wasn't that it took one man to inspire. It wasn't that it took one movement to inspire. It was the way that Britain decided to fight the war once the revolution began that really inspired people to actually want to join it, by housing soldiers in people's homes, by
The
stealing their
sentiment
property
against
and things like
Britain
that.
was already so entrenched in the country at the time that the British
No, it
soldiers were seen as
absolutely
an
was not.
occupation force.
It absolutely was not.
Well,
It
we're going to
wasn't.
have to agree to disagree, because the yeoman small farmer, the tax burden that they had faced because of the British Crown, was one of the fundamental motivating factors that led people to get tired. The fact that
I
they
think
didn't
you're
have
overestimating what a
representation.
small farmer was. There weren't that many small farmers in America. There just weren't. There were large farmers in America, but the farming class was not so huge that they could do anything. In fact, it was mostly the working class that worked for the farmers, in addition to the slaves that would work on farms and that would do kind of farm work. There weren't so many small farms that were involved, and there
What
definitely
what
weren't so
what
many small
what
farmers.
what would a yeoman be then? What is a yeoman?
I would say they were just a worker at the time. If you look at slavery in the South, only 1.7% of the population at any given time owned slaves. It wasn't that it was a huge out, and trust me, owning slaves
But
at the time was
yeomen
much
are
smarter than owning.
those are small subsistence farmers. Oftentimes they do have to work for big farmers because of debt burdens and other kinds of things. But I don't understand what you're getting at with the slavery thing.
What I'm saying
What's the
is that there
relevance?
weren't a large amount of farmers involved in all of this because there weren't a large amount of farmers in the first place. There were plenty of people that grew crops in order to feed
I think
themselves,
the
but those
yeomen
wouldn't be
were a
considered small
pretty. I think
farmers.
subsistence farmers were a pretty sizable majority at the time
No, they
of the
they just weren't.
colonies.
They just
So,
weren't.
so you're saying that workers who worked for large farm landowners were the majority and not yeomen.
I'm saying that there were plenty of industrial workers even back then. There were people that turned trees into wood. There were people that looked for fish and for things like that. There were all types of workers that were
That's
present in
that's
America.
that's
They were
that's
not
fine.
small farmers.
That's fine, but there was also a sizable amount of yeomen in the early days
Again, we went from
of.
sizable majority to sizable amount. There were plenty of them, but there was not a sizable majority of them.
Oh yeah, as long as we can agree there are plenty of them, I'm willing to.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
then
just
let's
would
just move on.
reject the view that there weren't a lot. I think that's pretty
What I'm
unreasonable.
rejecting is where I don't want to get caught in the weeds. What I'm rejecting is the idea that the American Revolution was a popular movement of a majority of Americans, which at the time it absolutely was not. It wasn't until
Right,
the war
but
started and the way Britain conducted
exactly
the
when
war
the
that it got
war
more people on
started,
their
when it
side.
actually started to become decisive, when it became real, yes, it became a popular revolution.
I don't know if I'd say that,
And
but
a majority
just for the
cannot,
purpose of argument, so we don't get caught in the weeds,
okay.
I'll just concede it. Let's just
Sure, because I think the reason I bring it up in the first place is because if you are going to stake out a position according to which the revolutionary position, the revolutionary history, the history of resistance, that all of that is associated with being a chaos agent and it's fundamentally antithetical to your values as an American patriot, I just find there to be a contradiction because the America is founded upon a revolutionary principle. There would
Yeah, but what
there
you're
would not
talking
be a
about
United
is
States of America without a revolution to begin
no,
with.
the difference in what I'm talking about is that the revolutionary principle that started the American Revolution was the revolts up in Boston, which was literally a couple hundred people. It was rejected by the vast majority of the aristocratic class in America who
I
weren't
agree.
for forming war with Britain. But
Yes,
the
that's
aristocratic
true,
class are
but
the ones who decided to take up arms when it became necessary and run the revolution. It wasn't the revolutionary class. It wasn't revolutionary acts. It was the aristocratic class with military experience that decided to take up the mantle. The people who signed the Declaration of Independence, these were not small people. These were very large
no,
aristocratic members of America.
we're shifting the point of contention here. At no point did I
Okay.
say that the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were common people. Again, the leaders of revolutions are rarely the majority of the population. Leaders are by definition always a minority. And yes, they oftentimes are very privileged and aristocratic because they have to have the resources or at least the privilege and spare time to be able to commit themselves full time to a revolutionary principle. So that's besides the point. But what I'm trying to say is that at the point in which they decided to take up leadership of an already existing revolutionary sentiment and fervor, they basically unleashed a dormant and latent force, which you yourself had already agreed was already there, that was coming from the popular stratum.
I will agree with that, but I will also agree that the principles in which they fought for were independence-minded. They were not based on revolutionary principles. They were based on
right. But what
expelling
carried
an occupying power.
What carried the foundation of the United States of America as a country, what carried that to its conclusion, what the thing upon whose back it was a possibility, right? That was the uprising of the revolutionary masses. Without them, nothing would have happened. A bunch of aristocrats with ideas and pens and quills would have not been able to do anything.
Bro,
I agree
I'm just telling you, you couldn't be more wrong. The biggest act of revolution that the colonists decided to do was actually sending a Declaration of Independence. Do you think that's been done before? Where they sent the occupying power a note saying, these are the reasons that compel us to the separation. These are the reasons in which we have objected to your rule to the point where we can find no further way to justify your occupation.
The Jacobin French revolutionaries like Saint Just and Robespierre originally didn't even want to overthrow the monarchy. They just wanted a constitutional monarchy.
I understand that.
But to say that they're not revolutionaries would be a little ridiculous. Because
I'm not saying they're not revolutionaries. I'm saying that
revolutions rarely begin. But revolutions, I think this is the hang up. Revolutions don't begin with an a priori revolutionary ideal that you want to impose upon reality. A revolution is a consequence of the fact that you could have a very reasonable, moderate, and normal position. And because of the unreasonableness or the irrationality of the prevailing power, or because of the intensity of the contradictions that make that impossible, that's why revolutions happen. You know, revolutions are not.
I'm saying, but I'm not disagreeing with you so much.
You mentioned the Bolshevik. You mentioned the Bolshevik
let me just make one more point first.
The Bolshevik Revolution did not happen.
Can I just make this one point first before we change speeds? The American Revolution was not fought over a revolutionary ideal. It was fought because rights were being denied that were promised. They didn't look at these rights as being revolutionary. They were promised by the British Crown. They just were never delivered. So when they decided to separate, it was because of a broken contract, which is a very capitalist and unrevolutionary ideal.
The notion of a revolutionary ideal is derivative from the objective reality of revolutions across history that at certain points become necessary, regardless of the ideological convictions of those that carry them to their conclusion. Robespierre and Saint Just did not begin with revolutionary ideals. They discovered these ideals. They discovered the necessity of these ideals because they corresponded to the reality they were living in. And the
But
same is
Americans never
true.
did that. America never changed their ideals. The ideals they wanted from the beginning were what they implemented when they won, and the reason for what they fought.
You yourself have proven that they did, because originally they didn't even want independence.
Because they
Originally,
just wanted to press for their rights. They thought that it could be done
exactly, and
diplomatically.
they realized that they would have to awaken to a revolutionary principle in order for that to be possible.
No, they didn't. They just realized that negotiations were never going to work again, so they took up arms. It was just a natural progression.
Exactly.
It wasn't
And they took up arms and they carried out a revolution and thus acquiesced to the necessity of a revolutionary ideal.
Again, I'm not going to concede that it was a revolutionary ideal, because it absolutely was not.
All right, fellas, I'm going to jump in.
Let's move. We can move on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that it's a good idea to move on because, Haas is making the argument that obviously he believes that America has that revolutionary spirit. But then even if we look at that in the modern day, I'd like to get into what that would actually look like if that revolutionary spirit were to sort of be embodied.
That sounds really interesting. I'd like to also do that.
Yeah, one might look at the MAGA movement, for example, and think that that's revolutionary in its nature. So yeah, let's get into that. Maybe you can kick us off, Halsey. Why you think that Marxism isn't the answer to whatever needs are pressing today?
Because Marxism is a system in which oppression becomes mandatory and in which theft becomes institutionalized. There is no way that you can justify the stealing of someone's property and distributing it to other people based on an idea of fairness and have it work out to anything but starvation, unhappiness, and general misery, laziness, and a lack of ability to want to move forward and thrive as a nation. But the idea that this is where we're at right now, and the answer is basically more welfare, that's nuts. I mean, that is nuts. So
everything you just described is what the Federal Reserve is doing, not Marxism.
How is the Federal Reserve doing that?
The Federal Reserve banks are plundering and looting this country as we speak. As we recently saw with the stock market, they're tanking the pension funds that so many ordinary working class people rely upon by manipulating the stock market in order to punish all the people who had to sell off stocks because of the recent tariffs. So this is just something that happened literally today, where the robbery
I'm saying
is
I can
we used our tax dollars to bail out banks through the Treasury that were private entities that in no way are accountable or answerable to the American public, and we paid for that. They stole that from us. Where's the Marxism in this equation? I don't see it. I don't think Marxism has anything to do with expanding welfare or theft or any of these things you're talking about. The theft and the stuff you're talking about, all that is happening under capitalism. Marxism is just a way of trying to scientifically understand why history is changing in the way that it is, so that we can have the necessary clarity to know these laws of development, so that they are no longer a source of strife, confusion, and decay for us.
Let me answer that, please. I mean, first of all, the idea that Marxism is a scientific definition or explanation of anything is patently nuts. But as far as the Federal Reserve goes, the Federal Reserve has done whatever it's done in order to print currency and put currency as the government demands into existence. But if you look at just something as simple as Social Security, right? Social Security, which is inherently a socialist program, even every Marxist that's ever existed in this country would agree to that. And what happens is that Social Security, then I'll just assume that you're a little different. But let me make my point. That Social Security, if you invested your money into Social Security from the beginning, or you invested it into a S&P 500 fund, you would probably have about 10 times the amount of money, and you would own it, as opposed to it being a benefit of the government. And that is between all of the times that everyone's complained and whined that the Federal Reserve has issued too much debt or has bailed out people that they shouldn't have, which, by the way, they've been doing since its inception. I don't particularly like the Federal Reserve System, but I just know that a country that spends more than it has to have some system in order to finance that. And we can talk about destroying the Federal Reserve and going back to some standard like gold or some other commodity that could be measured, and maybe that would be economically viable, maybe. But to try to put this on the Federal Reserve as opposed to the United States government, which tells the Federal Reserve how much money to print, is again just patently nuts.
How does the government tell the Fed what the interest rates are? Because that's done by a cartel of private banks, and they have
Of
independence
course,
from government policy.
because the Federal Reserve exists to try to limit the amount of inflation that's going to be produced by modern monetary theory. Again, not a big fan of modern monetary theory, but when they say that inflation is getting too high, they have to institute the only methods they know how in order to limit that inflation so that people don't actually starve, which, funny enough, they've been actually quite good at over the last couple of years. We like to think that we were struck by this inflationary reaction to the world. But you know what? We really weren't. The inflation rates made things harder on people, but that's because the Federal Reserve wasn't aggressive enough in trying to limit inflation, not because they were too lax, not because they gave away too much, not because they decided to do anything. It was because their intervention was trying to limit the amount of money that was entering the money supply, and they weren't trying to drive up interest rates too high, which is how you would normally limit inflation. So they drove them up just enough to kind of halt it, but not really enough to sink it.
Hold on. So you don't think that the Federal Reserve private banks are robbing the American people and stealing from
They're
them?
absolutely not robbing the American people. If they were robbing the American people, you would see the robbery in clear day. What they're trying to do is limit the pain that Americans feel.
We are
and
seeing
they've done.
it. We're seeing it in the form of the 50 to 60 or 70% of our income taxes going to paying interest on the national debt, which is debt
Brother,
that is a
come on.
consequence of
Come
the
on,
money
man.
that's being printed by these private banks, which somehow
Come
we're
on,
liable
let's
for.
stop being silly on this. You do realize that more than 51% of Americans don't pay any taxes at all. They get back more money than they give into the federal government every single year. And I'm not talking about the joint benefit of roads and houses. I'm talking about a refund check they get from the government that is more than they paid into the system.
I think there's plenty of working
the
class
idea that all of our
Americans
money, the idea that all of our money is going to pay for some kind of national debt. No, it just isn't.
Yeah, approximately 50% of our income taxes go to servicing interest that is from the national debt.
Yeah, and that's what they say right before they borrow more money to give you right back that same money. So it's not going to.
How is it being given back exactly? How is that?
Have you never gotten an
back?
income tax return check?
Yeah, well, they're clearly not nearly as much as what the government even takes from me, and I barely make anything. And there's plenty of
I'm saying
working
most
class
people I know make more than they pay in, and the economic advisor.
I don't know who you're talking to because I know plenty of working
It's not
class
a talking
people
to. It's clear. It's clear as day in economic reviews of everything that 51% of Americans pay zero income tax.
Well, I think there's plenty enough working people in this country who are paying
Who feel
too
like
much
they're
of it,
paying taxes.
who are paying way more than they need to be, just because we're paying off debt that is not even our own and that we
I'm
didn't
saying
even sign up
nothing is
for.
more than they need to be.
They're paying the debt that is not ours, but is in fact
They're not
debt
paying anything. They are not paying into the system. They get back more than they put in. This is literally like the one thing you're not allowed to say in politics that everybody left and right agrees on, that 51% of the population doesn't pay any income tax.
Are you saying
So
that
the
because
plenty of-
you're claiming that they're getting more in tax returns than what they paid?
They get more from the system back than they put into it.
What are you talking about? How do they get more back? From what? From
They get it back from either welfare benefit or they get it back from tax returns.
Okay,
From a
so
tax return
I'm
check.
just going to go ahead and press X to doubt that for the majority of people, tax returns cover what they paid in their personal income taxes or total taxes.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I'll get you some statistics while you're talking because I'm sure.
And
you
just
have a lot
while we're
to say
doing
about
that,
for tax
I would
returns
really-
in particular, because I just don't think that's true at all.
Yeah. I'd be interested. So, Hars, your argument is basically that in terms of the ills that we're talking about at the moment, that actually this is a product of the Federal Reserve and this international banking cartel.
More specifically, it's a product of the rule and reign of the capitalist class. It has nothing to do with Marxism.
And so,
what it actually is a result of.
There are no significant Marxists at all anywhere in any reigns of power or decision making in this country. Okay, Marxism.
I would say that's not true. I would say that Marxism prevails pretty heavily in the university system, in the legal system. It might not be in the political class, but it definitely is.
Take it from an actual Marxist that if I go into a university and start talking about Marxism, they're going to call me a bigot. They're going to say that I'm transphobic, and they're going to say that I'm not attuned enough to the microaggressions of gender toilets or something. I'm telling you now that
you know what? I'm just going to take your word for it, but I don't.
What the CIA helped do with the Congress for Cultural Freedom is hijack some of the popular Marxist ideas that were kind of gaining traction in universities and completely steer that away from Marxism and toward this nebulous identity politics nonsense that was fundamentally toothless, devoid of any revolutionary potential whatsoever, and more fundamentally did not target the ruling capitalist class. It targeted white men, even working class white men. It targeted straight people. It targeted ably bodied people, even healthy people who are not fat, and saying these are all the real oppressors, not Wall Street, not the banks, not the private cartel of banks that form the Federal Reserve. The real enemy is, in fact, your neighbor because they're white or they're a man or they're cisgender or something like that. So that's the madness that's going on in the universities right now, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Marxism.
Just quickly, fellas, I'm going to jump in just for 1 second, Halsey. Sorry. So this is where I find it interesting in terms of like listening to Haas and your descriptions and prescriptions of things, because generally when people think of communists, they think of these sort of like gay race communists that we see on the streets today. So in terms of your prescriptions and the way that you see it, why do you think that Marxism in particular is a good remedy for the ills that we're seeing?
You want to go first, or you want me to?
Yeah, if Haas could go first.
Yeah, well, I think that Marxism has immensely important explanatory value, even just as an analytical tool, because it allows us to understand the changes happening in our society without having to resort to idealistic explanations that it's just the wrong ideas or that it's just the wrong type of people. If we can understand that our problems have to do with objective qualities of our system, then just off the bat, we have better clarity. Also, I think that politics is rigged against the majority in this country. I think politics is for the minority, which is people who have immensely large volumes and sums of money. And what Marxism teaches us, and what empowers us with the ability of, is to strategize about how the majority can pool their labor, pool their resources to come together to actually have a seat at the table, at the very least. So that's why I think Marxism is very important. It gives the majority a chance to be able to actually build power without having billions and billions of dollars.
So a couple of points on that. The reason that we extended into this gay woke nonsense in the university system is because the economic rationale for Marxism just wasn't taking hold in this country, nor would it probably ever do much well in this country from its phase. People are generally opposed to taxes. People are generally opposed to government programs in this country. Even if they're polled and say that it's something that they want, when it comes down to it, they tend to oppose it. So what happens is that in order to stoke revolution, and you know what cultural Marxism is. I don't have to school you on this kind of stuff. They understand the asymmetrical warfare angle of it, is that what is needed in order to bring about a revolution are ideas that get people tuned in, that get people angry at their neighbor, that get people wanting to stand up for minorities, that get people wanting to take the majority and make them the enemy. So that's why you see white men being the enemy in this country. You don't see them wanting to pool their labor and work with all the different minorities and everything else in order to advance anything. You see a revolution where we're now we're so divided on little stupid shit that we're willing to argue about whether a guy with a dick is actually a girl or not. So
I just find one problem I have to point out before I forget it.
Okay, please.
If the reason for the woke stuff is because there is no basis for Marxism anymore, at least as I'm describing it.
Economic.
Because the majority of people, for example, are against taxes and stuff. Doesn't that contradict the claim you just made earlier that the majority of people don't pay taxes at all?
I would say that the majority of people that don't pay taxes don't realize that they don't pay taxes because they don't realize that a refund check is a refund on their taxes. I don't think they realize that welfare is a distribution of money to them. I think that a lot of people don't realize the tax rate. And you know what happens? If any of them, and I've done this myself, I lived overseas for 11 years. Anyone who goes to another country and they realize that when they actually pay the percentage of taxes to the government, they never get shit back, they freak out. They don't even know how to deal with this situation. And they think they're paying 80-90% of their money in taxes because all of that money comes out of their paychecks and they never get anything back. It's a very unique system here, and I don't know why it very well.
Well, we're not going to agree on the point of people making more on refunds than they do on the income tax. And, as you know, the majority of people aren't even on welfare. So, but in any case, look, I think that the best argument I could make for why I think that Marxism has always been relevant and at no point was the basis for Marxist ideas gaining traction gone is because it took right-wingers like Donald Trump to tap into angry working class sentiment, which was there the whole time. It's just that there were no Marxists in this country to tap into that or to recognize it. And that's a big problem. That's one of the reasons our movement has made a big splash, because we're bringing Marxism back to this country after it's been gone for so many decades. But it's actually Trump and the right which has managed to successfully tap into class struggle and class grievances, proving that, in fact, there was always room. There was always a relevance for Marxism. You know who said this was Steve Bannon. In a recent podcast he did. He admitted, he said, I can't believe how badly the left fumbled the bag. He said, we've, in him referring to himself, the right-wingers in the GOP, he said it was a cakewalk for us. He said, if the left just doubled down on the Bernie Sanders stuff more aggressively, if they just had the teeth to stand up to Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, they would have wiped us if they leveraged class struggle, because he saw on the ground how significant that factor of the angry working class American blue-collar worker was to tip the scales politically. And he was shocked that there was no left-wing politics, no Marxism that was tapping into this. So if the right-wing anti-communist, anti-Marxist like Steve Bannon is admitting that, I think it's a pretty damning indictment on the idea that Marxism lost relevance in this country.
I don't think that the opinions of Steve Bannon matter all that much to me or many other people. But again, I'll concede
he's not
the
a
point that
Marxist.
he said it. I don't think he is a Marxist, but I think that the sentiment that Donald Trump tapped into, hence the phrase "Make America Great Again," was to have the opportunity for people to earn a living and to be able to be left alone by the government. It wasn't that we wanted to institute some kind of universality or some kind of universal Benny system where we start getting all kinds of shit from the government. There's no one that actually wants that. And
China
after seeing
and Vietnam do not have very robust welfare systems like we do here.
China and Vietnam aren't robustly communist anymore. They're just authoritarian.
But
they're robustly capitalist.
if we implemented 1% of the policies or system that China has here, everyone would be immediately rushing to the streets, decrying and denouncing it as communism. As a matter of fact,
can you give me?
Well, okay, if we turned most of our major corporations into state-owned enterprise and nationalized,
yes, people would absolutely freak out. You are
right, but that's the system China. That's the system China has in place right now. So, I think it can't really be said that China isn't led by Marxists. It absolutely is.
But I mean, China has billionaires. China has millionaires. What are those people just?
Nowhere does Marxism. Nowhere in Marxism does it prescribe the construction of a system or the construction of a form of governance that eliminates the possibility of extremely wealthy people. Nowhere.
Nowhere does it say that. Are you really going with that?
Absolutely nowhere.
So the idea of a bourgeois class isn't something that was
the bourgeoisie
by
is not defined by wealth. The bourgeoisie is defined primarily by the control and the ownership it has over the means of production. As you can see in China, there is no class that exercises any such unilateral control. The government, even if it decentralizes the task of the management of the economy and it entrusts this in the hands of people, so-called private sector. We know that in China, there's no real private sector.
Wait. How on earth are you expecting people to... China has a stock market. That's what a stock market is. It's private ownership of companies. That's what you do. You buy stock in a company, you own a part of it. If they have a very robust stock market at that.
If we're going to go with the view that it's private, it is clearly not a form of private property that is in any way compatible or familiar to the more Anglo-American notion of what
Chinese
property
companies
actually
list
is.
on the American Stock Exchange. We have private ownership of Americans of Chinese goods.
Every single one of these companies sitting on the board that directs and manages these companies are members from the Communist Party of China.
So as I said, authoritarian doesn't mean Marxist.
The companies are directed and controlled by the party. They don't have autonomy. They don't own it It's not theirs exclusively. There is a degree of discretion that they have, of course. It's kind of like decentralization. And of course, people are allowed to get wealthy, and they're allowed to have nice things. But it is still
what you're describing is cronyism, and you're decrying it here, but you're somehow celebrating there. That's nuts. The idea that cronyism is somehow an acceptable form of governance
because
when it sucks here, but it's awesome there because the Communist Party are the cronies.
They're not cronies. The Communist Party serves the overwhelming majority of the nation rather than the private plunderers and profiteers that rule our country.
Are you really going to go with that? That Chinese Communist Party serves the interests of the people of China? Are you really going to go with that?
Halsey, have you been to China? Have you seen footage that's coming out?
I have met with a large amount of Chinese dissidents. I know Chinese people all over the place. I've worked with think tanks that have worked with China. And if you want to look at China, just look at the difference between China and Taiwan. Same people, two different systems. Taiwan flourishes, China doesn't.
Much better, much more.
Much better in China than Taiwan.
The People's Republic of China is much more developed and advanced than the Republic of China. Yes.
Really? So the People's Republic of China produces all of our fucking aspirin and shit, whereas Taiwan creates and produces the most advanced computer chips known to man. And you're trying to tell me
the People's Republic of China is rapidly catching up, and they're going to be able to produce it themselves.
They're rapidly going bankrupt. They're not even able to sell real estate. Their real estate sector is in the toilet because people can't.
They've been saying that for decades, that they're going to go bankrupt and collapse.
Go to the ghost cities. You can see pictures of them. They're readily available on the internet. They built huge skyscrapers that nobody fucking wants. You know what the difference
between a ghost city in China and an extremely dense populated city is? Like 5 to 10 years. So they begin not that populated. Once it becomes more lucrative and affordable, people start pouring in. It's just that there's a long-term plan as far as urban development within China. It's not that these cities are going to be ghost cities
There's
forever.
A long-term plan. The cities in China are hideously overpopulated, smog centers. You can't even go outside half the time in some of those cities. You're trying to say that's the long-term plan.
You're talking about China from 10 to 15 years ago, okay? It's not the same place. Just take it from me. It's not. Go to Beijing today and tell me about the smog. You won't find it.
Okay. You know what? I'll take your word for it just so we can move on from this ridiculous argument. I mean, again, I just don't buy what you're saying. So
well, look, all I could say is this. In China, private plunderers whose only motivation is profit are not in control. The people that are in control.
A party is in control.
Right. And to be clear, so that we don't have to be normative or prescriptive here or whatever, the party in China, what rules China is a plan. They have a plan for developing their country. That's what's in command and firm command and control of the country, not the interests of the private sector, profiteers and capitalists who are just trying to look after their own bottom line at the expense of the majority.
I'm saying they've had a plan from the way. Let me just make my one point. They've had a plan from the beginning. There was the Great Leap Forward. There was a whole bunch of other things which led to 60 million people starving to death. So sometimes a plan isn't that great, but America has never really had much of a plan, and we don't have this kind of starvation and desperation here. So our homeless people are fat. Our poor people have air conditioning.
China doesn't have the starvation either. And the reason that they had a famine in the past was because they had to autarkically and from scratch build the foundations of a modern industrial economy without any assistance, without any help, without any foreign capital, while simultaneously being besieged by the world and even the Soviet Union because of the Sino-Soviet
They had a plan that murdered the babies. They murdered babies.
I don't know.
They literally aborted half the population that would exist so that they wouldn't all starve to death. They aborted babies in order to do this, and you're trying to say they had a good plan.
Regardless of your views on abortion, I think we have abortion in this country as well. So we're also murdering babies. I guess everyone in the world is murdering babies. It's not really an exclusively Chinese evil, regardless of your views on abortion.
I'm not an abortion absolutist. I'm just saying that you're trying to make it seem like they had this happy fun plan where everybody was handed a teddy bear. They murdered babies in order to not expand the population.
No, that's not. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, the reason for the one-child policy, many in China regard as a mistake, but the reason for it at the time was because they thought that if they were overpopulated, it's not that everyone's going to starve.
Wait, are you saying they had a plan? Is that why they did it? Because they had a plan? Because before you were talking about how fucking awesome their plan is. And now all of a sudden their plan sucked and they made a lot of mistakes. Well, you know what? Lots of people die when they fuck up and have a plan that's going to lead to a lot of things.
Are you saying abortion is murder? Is that what you're saying? Because if you're saying that, then we're also guilty of that as well.
I'm saying that when live babies were born and weren't male,
I think that's bullshit.
Killed their babies.
I'm just going to press X to doubt on that. But in any case, look, the thing is that I'm not claiming anything is happy, fun time when it comes to communism. To actually make your country independent and self-reliant and industrialize it and create a better future for generations and generations to come, there has to be immense hardship. There has to be immense sacrifice. It's not an easy thing. It's a really tough thing. And it tests the resolve and it tests the stuff out of which a nation and a people are made. And if you're not willing to make sacrifices like that, you don't deserve to exist as a people and a nation, and don't deserve to have independence to begin with. What nation would accept the tyranny and slavery and colonialism of a foreign power? They would take up arms and sacrifice everything to win their freedom and independence. And it's the same thing is true when it comes to building economic
and we're back to this again. No, it's not. It's not the same thing. Because we industrialized just fine.
We're doing it now with the Trump tariffs.
We did not need to implement. We did not.
We're doing it now with the Trump
universal murder policies.
Trump
we didn't have to starve people to death. We industrialized with a profit motive, and it was fucking brilliant. And Western Europe,
we industrialized.
All did the same. And then when all the communist shitholes started shedding communism, they all started adopting it, and they all started thriving without.
Nope, Russia in the 1990s was doing worse than it was during World War II. Okay, it was a disaster. But look,
the result of communism.
No, that was the result of capitalism, actually. But look.
Oh, it was capitalism that got the communist country to starve to death. I didn't realize. I'm sorry.
Once they dismantled the communist system, the Russians started starving. They started dying in mass numbers.
They started
dying of disease.
Do you know what the Holodomor was? Do you know the mass starvations that occurred throughout the history?
That was the last famine. That was the last famine that region.
It was only 20 million. It was just the last one.
It wasn't 20 million. It was 20,000 trillion. It was 20 quadrillion, to be clear, not 20. I mean, look, I'm being facetious, but where are these numbers coming from? It's a little ridiculous. But look, here's
20 million starved in the Holodomor. I thought that was literally just something everyone knew. Okay, so what are the numbers? What were the numbers that starved then? You tell me. I'll listen to you.
Historians, the bourgeois historians, I should rather say, in the American academies, will say that it's anywhere from 3 to 7 that were
3 to 7 million
people.
Famine.
And the majority of them didn't starve to death. They died of diseases that accompanied malnutrition. So I know it's not great, but it's
so. Wait a minute. So just
to put that into perspective,
3 to 7 million. You sound like one of these people that say the Holocaust didn't happen because it was only 2 or 3 million.
Okay,
as if that somehow makes it better.
We need to put this into perspective. Around the world, under the capitalist system, the amount of people who die for the same reasons as in the Holodomor, the malnutrition and disease and stuff, it's 10 million per year. So every year that has passed since, let's say, the year 2000, 25 times 10 million. Okay. So do the math. That's the death count for capitalism. Okay. Oftentimes the numbers of the victims of capitalist starvation are not even counted as victims of a famine. For example, in India, during the time of the Great Leap Forward, had a higher mortality rate as a consequence of malnutrition and poverty than China did even at the height of its famine. Oftentimes in third world, we call them third world developing countries that are under capitalist systems, the same thing is happening continuously all the time as the norm, but everyone just sees it as a human tragedy and they just call it extreme poverty and ignore it. But in a communist system, when something goes wrong temporarily that's immediately fixed, that is universally acknowledged as a major mistake, that never happens again, this exceptional circumstance of a disaster that's happening, which is absolutely possible in any system, that's a huge indictment, and communism should just be defined by the mistakes that have happened. Never mind all of the benefits that actually established a norm of having food.
No, don't say benefits if you can't tell me.
There were absolutely benefits, because what communism accomplished was raising people to a baseline standard of living, that they had access to education, food, clothing, electricity, water, clean water, medicine. That was the norm. The Great Leap Forward and the famine that happened in Ukraine, that was a rare exception. The norm was a tremendous feat. You have to understand where they were coming from. These were backwater societies that came from nothing. The people lived like animals and they were starving all the time and no one cared. Communism uplifted them to a degree of power and industrial might that would have never otherwise happened. And the best part about it is that they had no help. They had no help and they had no assistance whatsoever from the global supply chains that were necessary to industrialize and develop every other capitalist country like America. Without British capital and having access to that, we could have never industrialized. We needed the industrial surpluses of European countries to come in and invest. And even with that, it wasn't even like a free market system either. We had a deeply protectionist system in place where we tariffed everyone. We had a protections for American industry, and we prioritized heavy-handed state intervention in the economy, state construction, and state-funded infrastructure, and so on, to lay the groundwork for American industrialization. To say that all of that is Marxism and that the dichotomy is just you just either have Marxism or you have free market capitalism ignores the fact that the socialistic tendency, that because you're calling a lot of things socialist or communist or whatever, that was there before Marxism. Marxism just started comprehending that in a scientific way, but it didn't invent that. That's a tendency of human society that we've been tending towards almost naturally as a consequence of the development of history.
Yeah. Do you know what
and for example, the Trump tariffs that are going on right now? I mean, to say that this isn't going to lead to immense human suffering and immense short-term sacrifices, at least short-term sacrifices, and to simultaneously say that you're a Trump supporter, I don't understand how you square those two things, because the Trump tariffs is going to be what tests us as a nation and as a country. And I don't think anyone can agree that we're going to have a rainbows and sunshine, happy fun time because of those.
Okay, so you just dropped a lot of shit on me that I'm going to address point by point. Do you know what the poverty rate was at the turn of the century last year? Not the 20th century, but the 19th century.
What's the
in the world? I'm talking global.
What's the methodology for quantifying or measuring that?
I'm using. I'm going to tell you exactly what I use because I wanted to make sure I got the numbers right. This was done by socialincome.org, Our World in Data, and the World Bank. They all have the same numbers. That in 1800, the poverty rate was 80%. At the end of globalism, so to say, at the point we're at right now, it's 10% worldwide. Okay. So if you're trying to suggest that what I'm saying is, as communism adapts more capitalist systems throughout the world, they raise people out of poverty. The sharpest increases were when China started allowing more capitalism and when Russia started allowing more capitalism. And you know what? I'm with you on this whole the true communism has never been tried. Neither is true capitalism. But all countries that embrace capitalistic principles move more towards food and money, and the other ones move more towards poverty and starving. China
started more modernizing and having a more light industry, consumer-based economy, and it started developing more once it started having access to the world market.
How do you develop a consumer-based economy without money? You have to have money to spend to do it. In order to do that, you have to industrialize and create industry.
There was money under Mao. Okay, there was a very complex
60 million people starved to death under Mao. So no, you can't say that there was just money floating around all over the place under Mao.
60 million people did not starve under Mao. Okay, and then second of all, there was a very complex monetary system in place before Deng Xiaoping's reform. So Deng didn't just bring all of the qualities and features you're attributing to. I mean, there were markets under Mao. The thing that Deng did that was decisive was a degree of the decentralization, the introduction of market reforms in the people's communes, and finally access to the world market, the total wealth of all mankind.
You just contradicted yourself completely. You just said that the whole reason China was so fucking awesome was because they had centralized control of all their industries, and then you say what made them come out of poverty? Decentralization.
No, because
it makes no sense.
You are getting two things confused. There were two phases of the development of Chinese socialism.
I know under what both of them were, but go ahead.
Under Mao, you have the primary stage. This is what creates the framework of a modern industrial economy with the basics, the bare minimums and the basics. That is the necessary foundation for any kind of industrialization. You have to centralize the economy. You have to build a modern industrial system with the basic rudiments of infrastructure and shared irrigation works and so on for agriculture and so on. You have to have a lot of steel and iron production and so on. So that is what Mao actually accomplished, and it could only have been done under the kind of system that existed under Mao. Now, once that foundation had been laid successfully, Deng Xiaoping could embark upon another stage, which was a kind of layer on top of that, which made everything more dynamic and receptive to the ability to assail the world market in the direction of China being able to fulfill its plans. So it's not that the Chinese economy became less planned or less socialistic. It's that it became more dynamic and more capable of tapping into the forces of the world market pursuant to its aims of not just industrialization, because the industrialization at the baseline level happened under Mao, but more broadly modernization. So access to consumer light industry goods, the building and construction of cities, and all the things we associate with modern information economies of scale, and so on and so on. And now that China has done that, they're lapping us, and they have a socialistic system. And they're lapping us. If we are the bog standard for the golden standard for a capitalist system, if you're claiming that China is only successful because it adopted elements of our system, why is China surpassing us now, even though it's more socialistic than we are?
Why is it? How are they? I'm not saying that we're not we don't have an element of socialism, and I'm
no, but they are way more socialist than we are.
They're not lapping us, though. I don't know what metric are you using that they're lapping us?
Compare one city in this country that looks like any of China's major cities. Just one city in this country that can...
So we're talking about the aesthetic value of a city.
No, not the aesthetic, the functionality of the city, how modern, how clean it is, how functional it is, how efficient it is, how many amenities there are, how much it works, how much it is planned the right kind of way. One city in this country that can even hold a single candle to one of China's, not even just their major cities, even some of their minor cities that they have that people don't even pay much attention to. They're hiding how much they've lapped us. They're scared that when we realize how advanced they are relative to us, that we're going to get way more aggressive and stuff. So they they followed Deng Xiaoping's motto, which is hide your strength, bide your time. They're living in 2075, man. It's a completely different world.
I mean, I kind of recall that one of their scientific centers, Wuhan, has markets where people eat bats and shit and chop up meat without refrigeration.
All right, and I can go to LA and show you people eating shit.
Eating shit?
Yes, I've seen it.
Your argument is that people in LA are eating shit.
Go to the sidewalks and you'll see. They're eating shit.
I don't know how to answer this. Let's move on to the next.
That's so
retarded, man. That is so retarded. I don't even know how to answer it. That
the
people are eating shit
in New York subway and in San Francisco and in LA are eating shit in public.
Are you trolling me? Are you
not
here to just be a clown or something? Are you trying to be serious and say that people are eating shit? People are going onto the sidewalk, picking up human feces and eating them.
Yes.
Anyways, fellas, this is not exactly what the debate's about.
And that's not going on in China.
They are eating the dogs. That's for sure.
They're definitely eating shit because I've seen it.
I wanted to move on just slightly in terms of
hold on one sec. Sorry.
In terms of prescriptions. So I think that you guys might even agree about a few descriptions here and there. But in terms of the prescriptions, because the debate is about why America needs communism, we've done a good job of sort of laying the foundations and looking at China and Soviet Union and all of these different places. But Haz, if you could come into power tomorrow and make sweeping changes to bring in Marxist theory to America, it sounds like you'd want to abolish the Federal Reserve and you'd want to centralize industry and all these sorts of things. So what would you do? Try and give it like a brief summary as to what you do, and then we can have Halsey respond to that. Yeah,
I'd implement the program of our Communist Party. So first thing I do is I'd wipe out all the debt, just cancel it. And if the bankers have a problem, we send them to labor camps in Alaska. They can't do anything. We're going to wipe out and cancel the debt. It's the first thing. We're going to reform the monetary system we have. The first step is going to be nationalizing having a national bank that's going to be focusing more on investment into productive industry and productive enterprise, also giving way more opportunities to the average American, eliminating this rigged stock market with all these insiders and all of these, corrupt cronies who are monopolizing everything. So that would be the most fundamental change that would happen right away, is the changes to the monetary system. We'd probably also want to think about adopting a new way our currency works, because right now it's backed by nothing, and it has this disastrous quality of simultaneously being a political currency, which we need to pump into the economy, stabilize the economy, and a global reserve currency. So that needs to change. So reforms would happen at that level. We would convert all of the major industries, all the monopolies, the energy industries, electricity, all the major corporations, the car manufacturers. We subsidize them already. We're giving them so much already. We would just nationalize them. We take them over, convert them to state-owned enterprises that are consolidated in the public interest. Okay, so that would be one of the other major things we would do. One of the things that we could do right away, just right off the get-go, right off the bat, is just using credit from the state bank to rapidly reindustrialize the country. We're going to be building new infrastructure. We're going to be building new cities. We're going to basically be taking out credit to do all these things. It'll pay for itself. That's how it works in China. And another thing that we do is we reform the education system. We'd abolish these Ivy League parasite CIA nest colleges. We'd have a new paradigm of education in place. We'd have more emphasis on trade schools, technical skills, things like that. I'd also shorten the workday. We'd have shorter working hours, because we would calculate exactly how much we need to actually sustain the fundamentals of industry and the reproduction of society, and so on and so on. And actually, when you calculate it, it comes down to, in the 70s, they did a study, it was about 1 hour per day. It's probably even less today. I don't know. We'd have a radical plan to basically shorten the working hours. And then we would have an economy, a parallel economy that starts developing based on the information sphere, a post-monetary economy, information economy in the fourth industrial revolution that's based in people's free time. So you clock in the mines for 1 hour a day. You clock in the factory 1 hour a day, whatever. You have all this free time left of. You open up a bakery. You pursue entrepreneurship. All of it's going to be based on the information economy, post-monetary economy. Just like how when you want to start up something on the internet that's digital, it's all going to be based on how many people are subscribing to you, watching you, patronizing you, and so on and so on. So the framework for building an economy like that in real life is in place, and it's going to be tied to the information sphere. And something like that would be implemented, So basically, it would be a radical transformation, rapid quantum leap into a socialist construction, basically.
All right, Halsey, a lot to chew on there.
Yeah, I know. Let me. I just want to make sure that I've got this straight. We're going to just cancel the debt. So we're going to tell everyone we owe money to go fuck themselves, right? And after we tell them to go fuck themselves, we're going to get rid of our national bank and create a new national bank that's under the guise of the Marxist government, but the one that we have already, which is the height of all evil, is going to be replaced by one that's just fucking awesome. It'd be led by
the ACP, the Communist Party.
Okay, so again, you're taking one state-run bank and you're saying your state-run bank is going to be better.
The Fed is run by the private cartel of banks. It's not run by the state.
Okay, yeah, it has a .gov email address or web address.
Yeah, they've taken over our government, sure, but it's still the private. It's J.P. Morgan, and they created it. It's private.
So wait. No, I got to get this straight. You're going to take the working hours that Americans work and turn it into 1 hour a day, so that they can be free to pursue businesses and entrepreneurship in a system where you're not allowed to own private property.
No,
what are they going to do? Are they going to? You just said that we're going to nationalize everything. So if we're nationalizing everything, what are they starting a business for?
We're only going to be converting into state-owned enterprises the existing monopolies. Okay, we're not.
What monopolies are those?
I name them: energy, the car manufacturers, the major ones.
There's dozens of car manufacturers.
All the ones that wouldn't exist without the help of the government already. How about that? The ones that need
so you're saying that the car industries, which encompass dozens and dozens of different cars, are somehow still a monopoly. The energy industry, which pulls energy from all over the world and has all different companies, even international ones.
Because we pay for them. They wouldn't exist without us. Everything that depends upon our taxes, we're going to take it.
We're just going to take it and just give it away to everybody.
We're going to take it, and we're going to entrust it in the public interest, which means it's going to serve the
purpose. And who
gets
to decide the public interest?
It's going to serve the purpose of benefiting.
No, answer my question. Who decides the public interest?
The government does.
So the government is going to basically create an energy company and a car company that are akin to the DMV. I mean, you do realize what happened when America decided
the
housing market and build housing. Wait, no. I let you ramble for a while. I get to say what I get to say now. You are trying to say that the housing project movement, where the government decided that, hey, we'll just build houses for everybody, which turned into sweltering shitholes where, as you say, people eat poop. Okay, like for some reason, those were just like a fuck up that didn't happen. When we built the train systems and they were completely inefficient when they were directed by the government, the one private company that did it managed to do it 1,000 times easier. The subways were built back in the 40s. Do they need to be modernized?
Right,
sure.
And that just shows how neglected our public sphere is. It's just neglected. It's a rotting shithole, and our government sucks, and nothing works in our government because our government isn't even.
So the answer is to make another government that has more control.
No, you cut me off. That's the problem. That's the problem. Our government sucks and can't get anything right because it's not designed to do that. It's designed to serve the interests of the plutocrats and the private, corrupt, capitalist elite, and it's not designed to serve us. The Chinese government works plenty fine. They have bullet trains. They have high-speed rail. It's clean. It's beautiful. It's efficient. We should have that too because we need a government that works for us and doesn't work for Wall Street.
So again, you're saying that when America designed their subway system, they designed the most advanced system that was available in the world
in the 40s.
At the time.
And we never updated it because the government doesn't give a shit about it.
I'm not cutting you off. Don't cut me off. China designs theirs in a modern time and implements it, and it's nicer than ours. And somehow that's proof that China had a plan and we didn't, even though we both did literally the exact same thing.
We did it 100 years ago, and they're doing it now. What are you saying?
What I'm saying is the technology that was available when we did it was not the same as the technology that's available now.
Why aren't we still doing it? Why have we stopped doing it? Because our government.
Oh no, you definitely. You're not going to get me to defend our government as being some kind of beacon of hope and freedom.
Why aren't they updating our infrastructure?
What I'm saying is your idea of making a bigger and more centralized government is patently insane when you're saying that the one we've created sucks as bad as it does. Your answer is to give them more control? That's fucking crazy.
No, not them. We give control to a government
that us. I forgot it's us, right? It's a government of the people, right?
That works for us. Not the
they work for
class.
Us. I mean, you do realize we've tried this whole bullshit argument before of the government working for us and that they're actually
just like in China. In China, the government works for the people, and it's proven by the results, by the way.
The Chinese are literally our manufacturing hub and get all without us, they don't exist. Without our money, they don't exist.
They're going on they're going up. They're improving. Everything's getting better. It's great. They're advancing. They're in 2075, and we're eating shit on the street.
Again, with the shit on the street, I don't know how to answer such retarded shit like this. That we're eating shit on the street and China is somehow advancing
on the street, and they're living in 2095.
Jake, the guy's trolling me.
I'm not.
He's not making a legitimate argument that Americans are eating shit, and somehow bat soup in China is far superior because the Chinese
is much better than actual shit.
Look, fellas, that is not within the purview of the debate, so I'm going to have to stop that there. But Halsey, there was a lot to actually go with in terms of what Haas said with his prescriptions about what the United States
his argument is a circular argument. His argument is our government sucks, so therefore what we need to do is throw it away, create a new government that has way more control, and implement a plan that I assume is somehow all of a sudden, wait a minute, the people that get involved in the new government, they're not corrupt like our old government. They're actually really cool people.
You missed the most
come together with a plan and then are able to implement it by taking away everybody's shit and nationalizing it. And now all of a sudden they're in charge, and that's going to be awesome.
You missed one thing.
Unbelievably retarded.
You missed one thing. You misunderstood another.
Okay, what did I misunderstand?
First thing you missed. That's important. How are we going to make sure it doesn't turn out to be the shitty government we have now? We wipe out the bankster class. We wipe them out. That's in a peaceful way or whatever, like not in a,
there's a peaceful way to wipe people out.
You send them to Alaska to work on bridges and stuff. Anyway, look, the second thing you misunderstood.
Gulags are the answer.
No, we call them fun camps in Alaska. But listen, the second thing we're going to be doing. sorry, the second thing that you misunderstood, I'm not trolling, I'm just trying to lighten the mood. The second thing you misunderstood is the idea the government's going to take all of people's belongings. Okay, private property as an institution in Marxism is not the same thing as things that people use and that actually have a role that's socially, that facilitates social production. Okay, private property as an institution is an antisocial institution, just like interest, just like the banking system that we have, which basically is rooted in immiserating people with debt. Okay, so that's a specific institution of capital. It's not the same thing as people having entrepreneurship in the information age. It's not the same thing as somebody in the digital age, right? Producing content and art and stuff that people like and subscribe to and want to patronize. And there's nothing wrong with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is fine. It's not incompatible with socialism. Marxism,
as long as they have the right idea of it, right?
No, because it's what the people determine. So, for example, you run a YouTube channel. Okay, your YouTube channel is going to sink or swim on the basis of how many viewers, how many subscribers, how many people actually want to tune in and give you their support.
On a capitalist system?
No. The difference is in a capitalist system, it's not based on information economics. It's just based on monetary economics. Okay. Now, we are not fully ready to destroy all of the remnants of that overnight, but we can start to make a transition into an information post-monetary economy and lay the foundation for that by integrating the information sphere, which is the internet and social media, all this kind of stuff, with real life production and real life entrepreneurship. It's kind of already happening. There's so many new sprawling businesses that are opening up and emerging that are that sink or swim on the basis of the social media stuff. So it's a really dynamic thing that's going on already. And you just need to kind of structure our policies to facilitate that even more, you know?
Okay. So again, I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. We're going to take the banking class, whatever that may be, and we're going to put them in a happy gulag up in Alaska building bridges. After we wipe them out, we're then going to determine that everyone only has to work for an hour a day. Yep. And that the systems, which will no longer be capitalist because they'll be dictated by the happy government that just wiped out the banking class. Wait. Will favor artists and people on YouTube and people that do information work.
I said entrepreneur. I didn't. No. No. Forget the YouTube thing. Right. I'm talking about how the information economy, it's only happening on our computers, on our screens, right? That is starting to bleed over into the real world in terms of the information dynamics about how everything is now driven by attention and popular demand directly, rather than solely on the basis of, how well it performs on the stock market or how lucrative it's judged to be according to investment banks. Okay. So there's a new logic at play when it comes to how society is developing, when it comes to how we produce things, small businesses, coffee shops, all this kind of stuff. And basically,
people are going to be able to frequent all those businesses and buy things
should be able to be able to, in their free time, pursue their American dream, which majority of it will fail, but they have the chance to pursue their dream in their free time. Let's say
only working an hour a day.
Working an hour a day for things that are necessary, that we all agree are indisputably necessary for our survival. And then we have all these surpluses and all these free time for people to actually realize their dreams, their American dream. So the kind of consumer, leisure stuff, again, I named coffee shops, bakeries, restaurants, entertainment venues, music, all this kind of stuff. In our free time, we should have the ability to pursue those things. And we don't have enough.
Wait a minute. Let me
our full creative potential as a people.
I love it. Full creative. Sure. What I'm saying is that I have a family of 7. Okay. There's me, my wife, and my 5 kids. I don't know how many children you have, but
none.
I would assume it's none. Okay. Are you married?
Not yet.
So you're saying that me working an hour a day is going to provide the same thing as you working an hour a day, but for me, it's for 7 people. For you, it's 1. And somehow at the end of all of this, we're going to be able to hang out at the coffee shop as long as we live in the pods and eat the bugs, because it's determined by the centralized government what we actually need.
So they did a study in the 70s, which said that in order to reproduce the existing amount of wealth that we have right now to keep our society running, everyone only needs to work 1 to 3 hours a day. That's necessary to actually look it up. It's actually real. So we are working more hours than is necessary.
So wait, a time before the internet, cell phones, and
That's what
all
I'm
of the
saying.
modern conveniences we live on.
Look. I'm saying
we're
technology
comparing
and
this to the
automation.
70s.
Technology and automation has gotten to a point since the 70s where it's probably less. You need to understand our society is becoming more advanced than it was in the 70s when it comes to how automated and
all of those
technologically
things cost
integrated it is.
a giant amount of money. So again, I don't understand where we're getting all this money.
Where does money come from? What is money? Money in the U.S. is backed by nothing. It's just a government credit. It's nothing. So
it's a government credit.
It's Federal Reserve credit.
It's literally just unspent money. It's unspent services. If someone like Steve Jobs creates iPhones, I decide that the iPhone in my pocket is more important than the money in my pocket.
The value of these things can be calculated on a more rational
as an IOU because he doesn't want to go buy an iPhone.
All these things can be calculated on a basis that is much more rational and much more related to the actual costs of production at the level of energy, at the level of resource consumption, and all these kind of things than relying on fake paper treasury notes that clearly are out of sync with reality because we're about, what, $40 trillion in debt? How does that square up?
So again, but you already said at the beginning, we're going to cancel that and throw all the bankers in the happy gulag. So,
yes.
That's already gone. We don't have to worry about the 40 trillion in debt anymore. The people that we owe the money to, they don't give a fuck either. Like, they're just cool with it. And then we're going to calculate. We're going to calculate through robots, the Communist Party, and technology how we can create a society in which people only work for an hour to 3 a day and are free to spend something. We can't call it money because remember, money is just fake notes.
So to be clear, I don't know if it's exactly an hour. I just know it's radically less than we work now. So we're going to shorten the workday. And what's going to happen is very simple. That is going to guarantee a basic level of subsistence where you have the basics. Okay. Anything beyond that, we're going to give people the freedom to pursue a people-driven, decentralized form of economic. Let me finish. People-driven.
Don't yell at me like that. I didn't yell at you like that.
People, so don't fucking yell at me like you're not even letting me talk. People-driven form of economics, where they have the freedom.
Say this without smiling, man. Like seriously, where are you?
I'm smiling because I had to make that noise. I'm smiling because you made me make that ridiculous noise because you keep interrupting me. But look, people-driven economics, okay. That is not based on coercion. It's not based on you're forced to do this. Okay. In order for us,
if I don't want to work,
if you don't want to work at all, it's like the Bible. He who doesn't work doesn't eat. You better have a good reason. Everyone has to work.
Everyone has to work.
Everybody has to work unless you have a good reason.
Do you get to decide what you do?
Why should you be entitled to the benefits of society's wealth if you're not contributing anything?
I'm saying there are plenty of people who can't work.
If they can't, that's like disabled people, that's elderly people, that's children, obviously. If they can't, obviously, any rational society plans for that and takes those people out of the pool of necessary labor. So and nobody has to work at gunpoint.
And my 5 kids and my wife and my elderly parents, they all get to get the same amount of shit as everyone else. But I still only have to work the hour a day.
The details.
But who isn't married or anything at all.
The details.
No. You don't get to say the details get worked out in the wash. That's bullshit.
The details have to be worked out.
Bullshit.
The details cannot be worked out by Haz al-Din in this stream right now for a fucking society of 330 million people. I'm just giving you a general idea of what direction I think we should be going in and what direction we can be going in. We don't need to have people work 60-hour work weeks, 80-hour work weeks. Okay, it's ridiculous. That is far beyond and over what is necessary to actually have a wealthy and prosperous society. People are getting
anyone to work 60 or 80-hour work weeks.
People are being forced to work 60 to 80-hour work weeks just to put food on the table.
No, not to put food on the table, to live a lifestyle they want.
No, because they're not living anything. They're overworked. They're working 10, 12 hours a day. What are we talking about here? They're working so much that they don't have time to live any kind of luxurious life. They have to do it because they need to pay for medical expenses for their kids. They have to fund their kids' education. They have to put clothes on they have to feed their families. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Just quickly,
okay.
fellas.
Again,
Halsey, I'm
Okay.
going to let you jump in just a second, but we'll go for a few more minutes, and then we're going to go into closing statements. Halsey, if you've got any comrades that want to come in and call into the debate, then you can. And Halsey, if you have people who want to call in
Right
just
now?
after, if you guys have got time after the,
I would
closing
prefer
statements
we
and
don't
everything.
do that, just because I don't want people like I agreed to debate him. He agreed to debate
Oh
me. It's
yeah.
not fair. It's not fair to just let people jump in and start running at him and me that we have no idea what their basis is.
All
And,
right,
and I would rather not do that.
Thought I'd throw a cat amongst the pigeons, but that's okay. So Halsey, if you want to, I'm interested to hear in terms of your prescriptions as well. What are your prescriptions when you look around society at the moment for the ills that you see, and why is it different to Marxism? And I'm going to be back in just a sec, guys. So go for it.
No problem. My prescription is to embrace the capitalist nature of America and unleash American innovation as we have been doing. We've invested trillions of dollars in our military, and almost every information system that's come out, every technology that we've ever dreamed of has come from our military expenditures. Everyone likes to demonize the military and say we use it for global warmongering and things like that. Well, maybe we ease back on the warmongering and go back to ensuring global shipping, which, countries like China, the most advanced, awesome super goat on the planet, have been able to get rich on because we guarantee their global shipping. I mean, they created 2 aircraft carriers. One of them they put in the ocean and they can't launch any planes. The other one sunk the minute they put it in the water. Their technology is not able to duplicate what we do unless they steal it from us. And this idea that they're living in 2075 is nuts. And the idea that we can't do the same, what we have is a motivation problem. What we have is an entitlement problem. We have people that are advocating that, don't worry, we could just send everyone to the gulag and give you their shit. We have people advocating for things that are absolutely berserk and have never worked in the history of man, will never work in the history of man, and always lead to the same thing: starvation, death, and unhappiness. What we can do is we can unleash the power of American innovation. We can start figuring out how to get rid of the different levels of cronyism by passing laws, diversifying more companies. And what we can do is we can start making the same type of investments into our country as we have been. He says he wants to get rid of the debt. I'm actually okay with getting rid of some of the debt and just saying fuck it, because there's a lot of things we owe to ourselves. So there's a lot of programs that we can just get rid of because we can't afford to pay ourselves back for what they are. We can develop new market-based systems that are going to actually advance the wealth of this country, advance the manufacturing base of this country, and are actually going to stop all the illegal immigrants, which, by the way, that's like the excellent slogan for capitalism. Is like America, 200 illegal immigrants, or 20 million illegal immigrants can't be wrong. Like, no one's rushing to get into China. No one's rushing to get into fucking Vietnam.
Because they don't let them in.
Oh, why don't they let them in? Oh, could
Because
it be
China
because
has way stricter border control and policies than we do. And the reason we have these workers, by the way, is because we're paying them dirt on the cheap, and we've devastated their homelands and cooed their governments that showed any kind of promise for improvement. And they come here out of desperation instead of their own countries being developed, because we've sabotaged them, because the military-industrial complex and the CIA.
Because the military-industrial complex.
And the banksters.
Wait. So again, I don't believe this system of control where I love how you say it's not coercion. I mean, that's all government can do is coerce. They're getting what they want at the point of a gun. That's literally the definition of coercion.
I know how you keep saying. I don't think the government should dominate the entire economy. I think the government should dominate
any industry that matters.
They should dominate. They should dominate the giant industries that only exist thanks to the government. And meanwhile, the most of the economy,
and the small industries that actually thrive from inventing technologies for these big industries,
give it back to we the people.
They're all of a sudden going to keep doing it with no customer.
You don't listen. You need to look up how the information economy works. You don't understand it.
I understand how the information economy works. I have an MBA in global economics. I study economics like just as much as the next guy. So no, don't tell me I don't know what I know. Okay.
Well, you don't know how about the information economy works. You don't know.
I do know exactly how the information economy works, and it only works because of the large people on top. The large people on top provide the market for all these people. You keep having this magic bag of money that appears and just gives everybody their money. They're holding
us back big time.
Every technological advancement this world has seen in the last 150 years.
It's thanks to the military and the government. Yeah, the government and the military. They created all of it. We know that.
So the answer is to use it against our people instead of using it against other people. Because if we use it against our people, then all of a sudden it's going to be fucking awesome. Like
What?
because you already said we're going to throw the banking class at the gulag, and I'm quite sure when the automobile class needs to go to the gulag, they go too. And I'm quite sure that when the Google class goes, they go too. Everybody goes to the gulag until you've used the military-industrial complex that you hate so much.
2008, so many families devastated, so many people driven to alcoholism, suicide, so many people lost their livelihoods. Where's the justice? There hasn't been justice. There needs to be justice.
Okay, so anyway, make an argument for justice. Don't make an argument for that a financial crisis that was created that actually we weathered pretty damn good.
So
you're literally creating first world products. You're like, well, people started drinking a lot.
Anyway, look,
people started drinking too much. People wanted to kill themselves because they didn't have enough money. That's the same thing as starving to death. Like, no,
this
it doesn't work
an
that
interesting
way.
point.
They lost their entire livelihood.
I'd like to hear both of your opinions about this, because 2008 is a good example of where your guys' prescriptions for how to go about that would be vastly different. And Hars, I know that you're like tongue in cheek about the gulags. I don't. Maybe you actually believe that.
He's not tongue in cheek.
It's tongue in cheek. The whole point about the gulag is very simple, right? I'm not scared of gulag. It's fine, but the whole point of it is basically that the reason our government isn't working for us is because you have these banksters in control who are sabotaging any attempt for the people to take back control. They're the ones issuing the directives. The CIA works for them. The media works for them. All the repressive apparatuses have thus far worked for them. And they need to be disempowered. And if they resist that, and if they try to get in the way of that, they need to be quarantined somewhere so they can't harm and poison and destroy and plunder this country as they have been for so long. Or if they want to peacefully surrender, that's great too. But here's the thing. The main point I'm trying to get at here, when it comes to like what the solution is as far as the direction we need to be going, and it sounds crazy and radical and out of this world.
No, it sounds retarded.
But it's not even 1% as crazy and retarded as Trump's tariffs.
Trump's tariffs, we don't even know what Trump's tariffs are yet. He's just announced what he wants to do. He hasn't announced what he is
We've
doing.
gotten a list of tariffs on every single country. And that
he cannot put those tariffs into place.
That's going to create way more radical change and disruption in this country than anything I'm suggesting.
If you believe that he's doing it because he wants to implement the tariffs, or if you're doing it because he wants to,
I'm going to tell you, China's not going to surrender. So, they're not going to surrender. They're not going to bow. They're not going to be intimidated.
China, I think, what is it? 72% of China's economy comes from us. I'm really afraid of them not surrendering to us.
China controls the entire industrial global supply chains. Everything passes through them. Everything in the world that's made passes through China. Okay, and
do you remember when the Somali pirates were taking over merchant ships like off the coast of Somalia?
All right, well, China's not the Somali pirates. I can tell you that much.
No, their ships have. I forgot those ships have magic wings that fly all over the world, and that they're able to defend the global.
China is the most advanced industrial economy in the world. They
put their aircraft carrier in the water and it sank. They are not the most advanced.
Even if China's military could never come close to the U.S. military. I keep thinking that, by the way. It's not true. But even if that was true, China goes down, then we go down, the whole world goes down. That's how much the whole global economy is tied to China's growth at this point.
Yeah, it's really not. It just isn't.
Halsey, all of the industries that we've
said. The only reason the world didn't collapse after 2008 is thanks to the fact that China bailed the world out with its growth.
Okay.
Yeah. So Halsey, in terms of your prescriptions after 2008, how do you think that they would differ from Hars's, and what would you have done?
I don't know if I would have done anything different. I mean, the massive amount of debt that we took on after 2008 was during COVID, and I would have said that was a stupid idea to begin with. So I didn't agree with anything that was done during COVID. So we're talking about two different times. After 2008, we went to qualitative easing. Do I think it was the best idea? It was pretty good. I mean, housing prices went up. People were buying houses like crazy. Homeownership exploded. This is after the worst housing crisis that the country has ever seen. And for some reason, we weathered it. So
why does China have an over 90% homeownership rate without that problem that we had in 2008?
Because number one, what they consider a home is a lot different than what I'd consider a home. And number two, because absolutely,
it's classified the same way as here on the books.
What a apartment in a high rise in a city is classified as the same thing as
we call that a condo here, and yes, it's a form of ownership even here. It's called a condo.
Again, so now we're back to eat the bugs and live in the pod. Like, you get to decide where I live. No, again,
what are you talking about? China. What pods? China. People own their home. It's theirs. Okay, it's not a pod. It's a home.
I thought you said private property didn't exist in China. that they took all those industries and they took away private property. Private property was evil.
No, I said
So
that
now you're telling me they all do
China's
have
not
private
ruled.
property.
I said that China is not ruled by a capitalist class just because it has wealthy people. I never said that people don't own things in China. That's ridiculous. And if you want to define private property on the basis of just owning things, then I'm all for it. It's just I don't think that's how Marx defined it. I don't think that's what it actually meant for communists in history.
No, you're just saying that Marx should own, that the government should own everything that matters and produce everything that matters and give everybody the scraps
That matters
work
to
for
our
that.
nation at scale, not personal belongings. I'm talking about.
So again, I'm very
Energy
curious
industry.
how all of these,
Yeah.
like China didn't invent Google, China didn't invent intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Yeah,
China
the U.S.
hasn't
government
invented
did.
shit.
The U.S. government did.
The U.S. government did. How? By empowering private industry. So
no, private industry came in, basically stole all the inventions of the military and reaped the rewards of it, even though we funded
they
it.
stole the inventions of the military
Yes,
when they were the actual ones who invented them in the first place. No, they invented them in the first place.
Privatized it, patented it, and took all the money.
No,
and we got
that just isn't. That's patently untrue. Have
No,
you ever worked in government
true.
contracting? Have you ever worked in government contract? Because I did for about 9 years.
Study the history of the internet. Study the history of computing. Study the history.
I've studied the history of all of them. I've
all
watched
created by
them do
government.
it.
Government
They all went
created
to open bid. The government gave them to private industry.
Let me ask you a question.
And then private industry developed these things, and then they decided to make more innovations off of them.
Screens? Who invented touch
Who
screens?
invented touch screens? It was done by a government grant. In fact, I know the person that I know the company that it was given to.
So it was the government.
No, it was created by government money, not by government innovation at all.
It was DARPA. It was the government.
I know who DARPA is, and I know how DARPA works. In fact, I've submitted dozens of grants to DARPA for companies, and all of them are submitting a plan to the government in order to do.
Listen, you can spin it however which way you want. It came out.
So we pay for it is not okay because we don't get to do it ourselves. So what are you saying? Those people should have been government employees?
We're paying for it. What gives them the right to reap the rewards of it privately, and we get nothing when we paid for it? It's crazy.
So they get to reap the rewards. So why we got ripped off? What did they get out of it then? If they do it just on your happy system,
people can be personally rewarded with wealth without creating giant institutions that privately accumulate wealth that must also belong to the country as a whole. They can have personal wealth. But the wealth I'm talking about.
So how do they get the personal wealth? Where do they get the personal wealth from?
Just like in China, they can get it from their hard work and their industriousness and their competence and their skills and whatever. That's fine. They can be rewarded for that. But the problem in our country is that giant institutions of privately accumulated wealth have emerged that actually have political capital and political power. They bought off all of our politicians. They rig our whole system. They have in control of all the policies. Right. And they did that off of the backs of our work and our money, or at least the work and money of the American workers that were living.
It was off of our backs and our money. It was actually off of private industry that created these things. And by giving them the patents, am I ever going to get to talk? This guy's filibusters for hours, and every time he says anything, and then he starts laughing again.
Go ahead.
Again. You're somehow saying that because we give the money to the private industry to create these things, and then they figure out how to take these things and introduce new systems, new private businesses that now commercialize the technology that was given to the military in 100 different ways. Somehow that would be more efficient if they were just given a reward for doing all of this, not be able to actually innovate with the technology.
Who funded the
internet was created so that the government could talk to each other, so the different branches of the military could talk to each other.
Who funded the R&D for these technologies? Who funded the R&D?
So again, that's what you're literally agreeing with me. You're saying that the R&D was funded by us, therefore we own it, and we decide what we do with it after that, and that the private industry shouldn't be able to do that.
The private industry should not have the right to have the level of independence and control that it has, as if it doesn't owe us, we the people.
Because the government is better? You just said the government sucks.
It's a matter, listen, before we talk about who's better and who's competent, let's talk about who owes who what, okay? If I come to you and you are the one who bankrolls something that I do, and you get nothing back out of it, and I get everything, that's a problem.
Okay, so let's use your example. If I own a bakery, right? And someone comes to me and says, I want you to make this new kind of cake. And I want it to do this, I want it to do that, I want it to taste this way and look this way.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, that'll cost you $400.
And I have to pay for it.
No, wait. Yeah, I know. And then you give me the $400 and then you walk away with your cake. And now I can use the innovation that I made to make this new special cake that you wanted to now make it for other people. I can now offer specialized services because I never thought about making it before, but I can. So now all of a sudden I have a business that I can actually make thrive about it. But you're saying that you, because you suggested the cake that you wanted that you had me make, somehow now owns the idea, and now my business can't make the cake anymore.
Your business,
because only you can, and then you can decide. You can maybe give me a reward, but you're going to decide who else gets
your business has to serve the public interest. It can't just serve some private cartel of crony oligarchs living on some island.
No, it has to serve a cartel of government oligarchs.
No, it has to serve the people. It has to serve the public interest.
That is the most retarded argument I've ever heard, that it has to serve the people.
Apple, that's who benefits. Apple, Microsoft, and Google and Amazon should all work for the American people. We pay for everything they have.
They don't?
No, they don't. They work for themselves, and they work for Wall Street and the City of London. They should be working for us.
Wait a minute. So you're saying all of the stuff, all of the computers that run on Microsoft, all of the people that order off of Amazon, they're all doing it because they're coerced by people who are only working for themselves.
No, but
and that somehow, if the government owned it, that would be so much better. That is just pure retardation.
All the technology and infrastructure is thanks to our taxes,
and we pay for it. They pay for it.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. The American
you don't think they buy the planes and pay the fuel? Oh, the American people pay for the planes that car Amazon shit all over the place and program.
Why the hell are Americans working 80 hours a week when they are owed so much?
Owed?
And yes, they are.
By who? By who?
By the private plunderers and oligarchs who have stolen the wealth from them.
They're owed? They went into the situation completely voluntary. They applied for the job, they got the job, and they're working for a wage they agreed to. How are they owed something?
When did the American people sign up to create the Federal Reserve? Did we vote on that?
The government did, which we live in a republic.
Why are we being put in debt for something we had nothing to do with?
I have no idea, but you can vote people in that'll change it if you want.
No, they'll get shot. They will get shot in the head, and all their descendants will be shot in the head if that ever even becomes remotely
No, but I'm
possible.
saying your system is better because all the people that would shoot them in the head are going to be put in the gulag, and they're not going to. And now the new people aren't going to shoot anybody.
That's much better than being shot in the head.
To have the people. I'm saying you're going to preemptively put these people in the gulag because they might shoot people in the head who disagree with them.
If Bill Gates is running around on the sidewalk with a vaccine and he's trying to basically attack people with it, he needs to be quarantined. It's a danger to the public. Okay. So there's nothing wrong. It's a preemptive measure to make sure that the public is safe from this Malthusian guy who wants to depopulate us.
Didn't the government ask him for the vaccine in the first place? And I'm not a fan of the vaccine. I'm just saying,
our rotten government is run by these people. We don't have let's stop pretending we have a government. The government is an occupied it's an occupation force for the banks and for the oligarchs and the cronies. That's what our government is. It's an occupation entity. We don't have a real government. We need our own government by, of, and for the people, just like it was intended. We don't have it.
I don't know. This morning I had this weird thing happen, and I'm telling you, this was really strange. So I looked out my window, right, and there was this truck that pulled up. And what they did was they took my garbage that I put out on the curb, and they put it in the truck and they carted it off. But they had to do it early. And
Thank FDR.
Wait a minute. Shush. So after this garbage truck pulled away, right, they had to do it really early because it was scheduled that the same government that we don't have that's occupied was paving my street. They're paving my street because they came through my neighborhood and they paid for people to upgrade all of our meters so people don't have to come in our houses anymore. So in doing that, they tore up the street. So they're repaving it. Now, these are all, I understand they're occupied by Bill Gates and Zionists and everybody else, but they somehow figured out how to take my garbage, pave my street, and generally make my life a little bit better.
Thanks to the New Deal and FDR, our government is still technically
So they weren't occupied then.
let me finish. Our government is still technically obligated to perform the bare minimum of necessary services befitting of a modern industrial nation. However, the problem is that
What
you look at,
services are they not providing?
they're not fixing the fucking roads in Michigan where I live, for starters. The infrastructure is in shitty, poor shape all over the country. You have bridges on the verge of collapsing. You have trains derailing in East Palestine, Ohio. So the government is not actually fulfilling up its end of the bargain of actually taking care of its obligations. It's doing the bare, the garbage trucks are coming, and we have a bare minimum. I mean, even some countries in third world countries have that. It doesn't mean we actually have a real functioning government.
You just said literally we have no government, and you said that we're just an occupied government of oligarchs. Yet the basic services that Americans want and demand are generally met. Maybe you're not ever been poor, but have you ever heard of Medicaid? Like, we provide health insurance for people that can't afford it.
You're missing the point. Okay,
I'm missing the point.
When I say that,
I'm missing the point.
When I say we literally have no government, it's called hyperbole. It's a thing in literature.
I understand what hyperbole is, but what I'm trying to say is,
so what I'm saying, we have no government in the sense. We have no government in the sense we do not have an institution that safeguards our sovereignty as a people. We have an entity that is controlled, which, yes, still performs the bare minimum of very basic things. Of course, no one's denying that, but look at the trajectory that it's on. If this is a train, where is it headed, right? It's headed in a direction where it's starting to neglect its basic duties and obligations to us as a people. Things are starting to be, privatized and sold off and given to the private sector. More and more and more, it's going in a direction which is radically converging from the public interest and into the private interest. And it has been doing this for decades.
So for decades, we've been headed in this direction. So the answer is to throw it out completely, put a new government in place that's going to represent the will of the people, because after all, the people can be defined as 350 million people who all want the exact same thing. And you're going to say that somehow that government is going to be good. The previous one wasn't, or the previous one was occupied. But don't worry, because we'll send them to the gulags. They'll go pay for this.
That's what Lincoln wanted. Lincoln was going to do that. Lincoln would agree with me.
Lincoln was one of the worst presidents we've ever had.
And we're going to get into.
Don't use him as a fucking.
I think Lincoln was great. Lincoln was a great president.
I would imagine you would think that, but he absolutely was not.
We're going to have Lincoln, but take it 100 times farther.
Well, then that's
cool,
all
guys.
you need
Let's get
to
into
say.
let's get into some closing statements now. As much as I've enjoyed this, we have gone over, but it's just been too fun to stop. I'm going to put a poll in the chat now, which is: does America need Marxism? At the start, we did a poll, and it was 95% no and 5% yes. So Haas had a bit of a mountain to climb. So I'm putting another poll in the chat right now, guys. Jump over and put your answer in. Yes or no, does America need Marxism? So with that, Halsey, you're going to start, and Haas, you're going to get the last word. So Halsey, try to keep it to 2-3 minutes, I think.
I don't have much of a closing statement. My debate spoke for itself. I think the idea of implementing a radical government-run program that's going to work for the will of the people and somehow be able to bureaucratize the entire country and make everything happy as long as the certain people that we don't like are sent to the gulags has been tried over and over and over and over again throughout the world, and it's failed every time. It's led to mass death and mass starvation. And I don't care for the people that like to define capitalism as anything bad in the world that's ever happened is capitalism, but everything that's good is communism. It just had some bad results that were the result of actually capitalism. His argument is ridiculous. I seriously think the majority of the time he was trolling. So,
I'm not trolling. I'm just not AOC. I don't do this thing of Teletubbies and happy fun time. To really have a revolution, you need to have sacrifice. To really fight for what's right, to have sovereignty, to have freedom, to have independence for the future generations. I'm not promising people happy fun time. I think tough times are ahead, regardless of what happens. I could literally not exist tomorrow in the blink of an eye. Really tough, harsh times are coming that are going to test our integrity as a nation. Marxists have have proven the best and most capable of leading a population and a people through inevitably tough times. In Russia, it was going to be inevitably a tough time because of World War I, because of the collapse of the old system. China was balkanized. It was a warlord era. That's what they called it. It didn't even have a functioning central state before the communists. So these are tough times, and you weather the storm. That's what proves what you are as a nation. And we're headed for that as a country. It's going to test the integrity of what we call the United States of America. And we need Marxism to be able to weather this storm and get through it and survive it as a nation. Otherwise, we're going to be balkanized. Our country's going to be destroyed.
And we're all going to be eating
it's going to be tested either way. Are we going to pass the test without Marxism? I don't think so. We're going to need some really radical ideas to get past this storm. That's all I could say.
And we all don't want to be eating poo, right?
All right, guys. Enough with the poo.
I said we all don't want to be eating poo, right?
Exactly.
So in terms of the poll, we had 300 votes, and we had, does America need Marxism? 53% yes, 43% no. So the comrades have come out in force for Haas. So we do need Marxism, 53%, and we don't need Marxism, 47%. So we're going to get into some super chats here, guys. There's a few questions coming in as well. So last chance if you guys want to get a super chat in before we wrap this up and Halsey goes over to his Twitter space that he's going to be putting on. Christian Mitchell, new member, thank you very much. Jonathan Dynan has been a member for 4 months. Thank you very much. And John Dynan says, I'll be a contrarian with this take and make the prediction that Haas will probably win this debate. Haven't watched either in years, so acting on very old info, but I always remember Haas to be sharp. And also for $5, says, going to correct the record. Haas is roughly a Marxist-Leninist, think USSR, not modern communism. Is that correct, Haas?
Yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't call wokeism modern communism, but yeah, I'm a Marxist.
I wouldn't either. So again, we don't disagree on that.
All right. Mashiko Dayanagi says, I would like to know why Haas has a Russian flag in Zita while he is a member of American Communist Party. In my opinion, it's like being a chicken supporting KFC.
I'm doing it to protest the fact that we've lost memory. We've forgotten what our American flag means. So every time I see Marco Rubio and all these traitors fly our American flag, it's a complete abomination. So I'm doing that as a protest until we rediscover the revolutionary principles that founded our country. We are insulting ourselves by pretending that when Marco Rubio flies our flag, that's our country. It's not.
All right. Donna Poirier for $10 says, keep on bringing the good stuff. We need it. Thank you, Donna. John Dynan says, Haas is attempting to theory sell on Halsey. Right. Haas, do you know what theory sell is?
No, I do not.
No, I'm not sure either. Donna says, for $10 for a smoke break or beer or coffee. Thank you, Donna. Much appreciated. John for $5 says, LMAO, Haas got the W on that one. I lived in SoCal for a number of years, and homeless do in fact eat poo in the street. So Haas, we've got a witness to the homeless.
I've seen it myself, but yeah, I appreciate other people can back me up on this.
Yep. Donna for $5 says, I need a bev break. I hope you took it, Donna. Mexican dollars, I'm not sure what that means, but D. Dartanez says China is the absolute all-time undefeated GOAT. Halsey, would you agree with that China is the GOAT?
No, not at all.
Okay. I would agree right now.
John for $5 says, bless is the moderator. He has kept his patience somehow in this debate. It was easy. It was a fun debate to watch, I thought. Bless the moderator ×2 from Donna. Dartanez says, Halsey low-key changing his mind but feels too dug into the let's eat poo position. So Halsey, did you change your mind about the fact that they're eating bat soup and then they're eating poo in America? So it's comparative.
So I would say that I changed my mind in that I just thought what he was saying was ridiculous. Like now I think it's ridiculous, and that he was trolling me for a good portion.
No, I'm serious. I'm not trolling.
That's a really scary thought, but okay, that's cool. No, he did not change my mind during this whole.
All right, go to LA and see it for yourself.
Okay.
Isaac Hayes for $15 says, how does Haas feel about excessive work hours for minimum pay in China, and why has he not moved there himself?
So for your first question, it's actually a really good point, but I would say that the reason is because China has been focusing for so long on building up and catching up to us that it had such little time to bridge that gap. We've had hundreds of years to develop. China has to bridge the gap in a very rapid amount of time. All I'm saying is that we have the wealth and technology to be able to radically reduce the work hours now. But I can understand why China, they had to work so hard because they had to so rapidly catch up to us. And regarding why I haven't moved there myself, well, look, as much as in my country, America, people are eating poop on the street, and as much as everything's decaying and collapsing here, I'm not Chinese. I have no connection to China at all. I mean, I don't have as much of a connection to this country as other people do. My parents came here when they were like children, and I was born here and raised here. But at the end of the day, this is the only country I know. It's the only, all my experiences, everything that I am, it's just this country. So as much a poor state this country is in, it's still my country. And it's just, it's like my family. If my family's doing poorly and they're acting badly, I can't have a new family, So that's what I would say.
No, you could just deport the one you have to the gulag.
Well, that's more like a creepy step uncle or something.
Okay.
I don't know, some kind of in-law.
I did think before that the idea of quarantining Bill Gates was very ironic, but that would be funny if that did happen. Just quarantine,
Agreed.
No gulags.
Yeah.
Harold Sullivan for $10 says Haas is offering a new solution to the crisis. Halsey is just offering more capitalism, which isn't working. Halsey, what would you say about that?
I would like to see the proof that it's not working. It's working
And
just
John
fine.
Darnan, John for $5 says, "Lol, Haas viewers rigging the poll." Haas, did they rig the poll, or is this just
They
natural
could have, but I
consensus?
didn't. I did not direct them to do anything. I don't know. I don't even.
That I'll agree with you on. I don't believe you did. So,
I didn't.
I don't believe you did. So I'm giving you credit for that one. I don't believe you did.
Well, that's the way I like to look at the polls. It's just that the numbers don't lie. The polls are the polls. Peyton Johnson for $5 says bootlickers crank so hard to Marxism. A person's IQ has to be under 70 or they're under 22 years old to think it's a plausible solution to anything. Harsh words.
They're very harsh words, but Peyton, take a trip to China and then ask people about their IQ. Compare the IQ of the average person in China to America. Let's be real here, all right? Marxism is taken very seriously over there, and over here, people don't even know what Marxism is.
Halsey?
Again, I'm not this. I agree, but
And France for $100 says I'm a communist and a Marxist, and he's redistributing the wealth, which is what we love to see. This money doesn't mean much to me, but thanks for hosting the debate. Good work, Haas. Thank you very much, France. I appreciate that generous donation. Charlie Gautier says Marxism, Leninism for the win. Amelia for $5 says the goal of the Great Leap Forward was to catch up the steel production of industrial Britain, and that was achieved, not just achieved, but surpassed. What do you think, Haas? Was the goal of the Great Leap Forward achieved and surpassed?
It was, yeah. It was, with great cost, but yes, it was.
Yep. Harold Sullivan for $5 says, will Halsey join the American Communist Party or will he run to England?
acp.us/join.
I have a Second Amendment right. I will oppose the American Communist Party with everything it takes.
We support the Second Amendment. You can join and you can come to us to the range, and we can all, we'd share our rifles at the range and target practice and shooting and all that stuff. We love it. We're real.
That doesn't shock me at all, but.
All right, Starside for $8 says, I would have preferred more rational, sober responses from Halsey. A lot of his reply was just incredulous hysterics. I thought there was some pretty rational responses there. What do you think, Halsey?
I think I did fine. I thought it was a good debate. I enjoyed myself. So,
yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Both of you guys were great to listen to. Heloweki for $10 says, Halsey L, Haas L, Jake W. What a legend for winning this debate without saying much. Well, I should have put myself in the poll. Amelia for $5 says, I don't know what about eating the poop on the street, but did anyone catch the viral video of the homeless guy who was roasting a rat that went viral recently? I did see that, roasting the rat. Did you see that, Halsey?
I saw it, but from what I was told, because I was actually sharing it around for a while, and I got a couple of messages that it was AI. So I don't know if it's actually real.
And Haas, did you see that?
I didn't, but it doesn't surprise me. How lower can you go than eating shit? And rats is the step up, actually.
It's like a nice bougie meal compared to
Yeah.
the poo. NRJ for $20 says Marxist Leninism is the future as that is science. Archaic capitalism is dead. Would you agree with that, Haas?
Yeah.
Halsey? You agree with that?
Absolutely not.
All right. And the last one here, as far as I can see, is from Sankaras Renault for $10 says, as the Ugandan guy said, why eat the poo-poo? I haven't
They
seen
eat
that.
the poo-poo. I haven't seen it either.
They eat the poo-poo. They eat the poo-poo. All right. Well, fellas, I really appreciate this. Like we said, Halsey, are you going to be, that space is going to be hosted by a friend of yours and you're going to be in there. So if anybody wants to see that space, it's going to be below. All of Haas's details are below, his Twitter and his YouTube. Same with Halsey, Twitter and YouTube. And you guys can go check out all of their work below. I want to say thank you very much, fellas. Haas, great to have you back on the channel. It's been a little while since we've done anything, but good to see you, man.
Thank you, Jake. I hope it was not too crazy for you. I hope everyone had a good time. I hope it was good, right? Was it everything good or?
Yeah, no, it was good. I really enjoyed it. And then Halsey, first time
Nice.
on the channel, but we've connected a bunch on Twitter, man. So it's good to finally have you on for a debate.
Love to do another one. And Haas, I'll give an open invitation if you want to do another one. That we can absolutely do it.
Sure, yeah, I'm not against it. Yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, I'm going to remove you guys both now, and you can head over to that Twitter space if you want. But thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care.
All righty. I'd missed that last chat there by John. We'll see to the Marxist-Leninists that their guy won tonight. Close debate, by the way. Theocell equals using Marxist theory. Right. I thought that was a really good debate. What did you guys think? I thought that was great. I tried to go into the open panel for those of you guys who are asking, but I don't think that these guys were too keen on it. It's kind of like, if there's enough demand for it and if everybody's keen for it and if we've got the time, then we can do the open debate. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the chat because I'll tell you what, I have been having an absolute nightmare recently getting debates because you guys saw it like towards the start of the year. I had them going every week, and that was my plan, is that I wanted to get them going every week. And then this debate took a little while to actually get going, to get all the schedules lined up. We finally got it going. I've had about 5 other debates where they've just fallen through because like somebody hasn't replied and it's been really difficult to actually get it going. But now it seems like things are heating up a little bit more, and I've got 2 debates happening next week. I've just arranged tentatively, need to get a little bit of confirmation for another really good one that's going to be taking place in July. And then I've got Andrew Wilson as well. I asked him this morning if he wanted to do one. I've got somebody who's keen to debate him, and that'll happen in the next few weeks. So, yeah. Give me in the chat, guys. I'm really keen to see what you guys think of those of you who are still here. Give me a Haas W or a Halsey W or HW. Oh, no. Haas W or Halsey W. Who do you guys think won the debate? We saw the poll there. But I thought that they both did really well. I've seen Halsey debate a fair bit. He tends to debate the Israel conflict a little bit and debate politics and everything. But I didn't know that he had this sort of background in doing government contracts and everything. It was really interesting to see his expertise come through. And then Haas is going to be a really tricky customer for anybody who ever wants to debate him because the guy's sharp as hell. And he knows his shit. So it was, yeah. I guess if you're going to take a radical stance like Haas does, when I look at his Instagram, it's like the goal is global revolution. You have to know your stuff. And you have to be able to put a good argument forth. So I really enjoyed that. I've been wanting to get Haas back on the channel to do a debate because I don't know enough to debate against like the philosophy of Marxism at this stage. So I couldn't really do the debate, but wanted to get someone who could. John Dinan says, get my boy Dave, the distributist, on eventually against a BoomerCon. Just wait until Easter to contact him. He's off X right now for Lent. I don't know who Dave, the distributist, is. You don't have to tell me in DMs or something who he is. So a bit of a mix in the comments. Haas W, Halsey W. I think we'll see. I'm going to go on X. Can I go on X? Can I even log in? was going to see what the Twitter space is saying. Let's see if I can even log in and jump into that. But yeah, so next week, guys, we've got some really cool debates happening. We've got Rob Knorr. You guys know Rob Knorr. He's coming on onto debate, and he'll be debating against one of the liberal Twitch streamers. And they're going to be debating about Trump's first few months in office. Rob, I think, is one of the best political debaters around. And these Twitch streamer kids, they're pretty sharp too. So it's going to be a good debate. And then we've got another one with a few guys that I know from around the Instagrams that are going to be debating if women should be silent in church. So that'll be good. And then, yeah, we'll be seeing where it goes. But a lot of fair bit of love for Halsey in there. Fair bit of W's for Haas going on. I mean, I hope the comrades haven't all just left the chat though. All of the comrades just come in and just, you know, support their boy, but then they just leave once the debate's over. Now, we got how many super chats, guys? We had a goal of 50 and we've got 35. Can we get to the 50? I mean, I'm putting on this amazing entertainment for you guys, putting on this fantastic debate for you. These communists versus the capitalists. We've got more debates coming up. I think we should probably be able to get to that 50 super chat mark. What do you guys reckon? Especially if we want to, you know, continue doing these sorts of debates. I'm trying to log into Twitter. Yeah, I can't even log in on this computer. I think we should probably get there, guys. A couple more updates from the channel as well. Me and Vinny, I don't know if any of you guys have seen this from like years, from like the last 2 years. Me and Vinny have been sitting on this documentary that we've been working on about the killing fields in Cambodia. About nearly 2 years ago, we went to the killing fields in Cambodia and we did a whole documentary about that. And we interviewed a few of the last remaining survivors. That's really coming along. We had to get it subtitled. And let me tell you guys, if you're ever thinking about doing a documentary in Cambodia and getting Khmer subtitles, Khmer language subtitled, maybe think again, because holy shit, was it a pain in the ass. That's coming along, and we're going to be doing a little bit more of that. So we're going to have a whole Cambodia series happening very soon, which will be great. Otherwise, me and Andrew filmed another episode of Not One Step Back this morning, so you guys will enjoy that. Let's see what's happening around the interwebs. Jordan Peterson back on Piers Morgan. Holy shit, check this out. I didn't even see this. Jordan Peterson back on Piers Morgan. Why does Piers Morgan always tend to make Jordan Peterson cry? Pathetic to the core. Candace Owens compromised, RFK Jr. and Hollywood exposed. I'm keen to see what your opinions are in the chat with this, guys. What do you think? What's your take on the RFK Jr. story? Do you think that he's compromised? And if so, do you think it matters? Do you think it's really a big deal? We've got a few super chats coming in from some legends. Donna Poirier been such a good support tonight for $5 says, like the dark blue background. Yeah, I like it too. Vinny's good with that sort of stuff. Lost Avarice for $20 says, thanks for the debate. Thank you so much for your support, Lost Avarice. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. So in terms of the RFK story, guys, now I'm a little bit conflicted about it myself because the rumors swirling about RFK is that he is compromised, and more specifically, he's compromised by the Israelis, right? And most people look at that generally from like the consensus that I was seeing on Twitter, on YouTube, etc., saying, who gives a shit if he's you know, they've got some sex tapes of him. We want him to make America healthy again. That's what he was put in office to do. That's what he was given this position to do, and we don't worry about that. However, the part that I find really troubling about that is that as soon as he gets into office, he's making these tweets saying that anti-Semitism is now a public health crisis. I find that pretty troubling myself, because no, it's not. First of all, there's some major public health crises going on, to do with vaccines and to do with all of the preservatives and all the crap that goes in your food. And from an outside perspective, America is like, if you go to America as compared to other places, yes, the people are a lot more fat, but it's just so in your face. It's so intrusive every time you go there that the calories, it's like you're Mike Tyson bobbing and weaving away from calories the whole entire time. And there's just constant advertisements for random fucking drugs that you do not need. Have you ever stubbed your toe and flinched? Well, take whatever the name is. And that's bullshit. You don't need that. You don't need that crap. And you never see any advertisements ever for, have you had enough sunlight today? You know, you never see any advertisements for, are you eating whole foods? No, it's, you need to take this drug. So America has a serious public health crisis. And if you don't leave too much, you don't really understand it. But every time I go there, I put the TV on, you know, if I'm in my shitty hotel room, and it's just, you're just bombarded by it. You put on the radio and you're completely bombarded by it. And it's so clear that these big pharma companies and these big food companies have an absolute stranglehold on the testicles of America. And that's what RFK was put in office to do, right? However, when he is put into office like that, if there is all of this compromising blackmail on him, then the problem is that these big pharma companies and big food companies could find access to whatever blackmail it is, and then could compromise him to actually not fulfill his duties. So if he's coming out and saying, well, the problem is that there is a public health crisis of anti-Semitism, that should make you stop and think to yourself, really? That's the public health crisis that you're really super duper worried about right now? And he's coming out and saying that, you know, he's going to go with the FDC's vaccine schedule. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think that he should still ask the same questions as he used to ask. And if you read his book about Fauci, the real Dr. Anthony Fauci, he absolutely eviscerates the whole entire vaccine industry, and he eviscerates the public health industry. And it seems as though the public policy, maybe it's the fact that he has to gradually implement these things, and in order to actually get confirmed, he needs to come in and he needs to gradually do these things, because he won't get confirmed and Congress wouldn't have let him in if he came in with a really sort of radical stance. But then there's also the possibility that if there is really sort of compromising material on him, that people are holding things over his head and are not allowing him to actually implement the things that he wants to implement. Now, I agree with the notion that obviously, you know, if there is some sort of a dick pic out there about him, let's just whatever, you know, just keep doing the public health stuff and don't worry about it, and let's just not focus on the story too much. But if you actually really care about this, if you really care about the public health crisis and him solving this public health crisis, then you should really care if there is some compromising information that's actually holding him back from doing that. So I see both of the sides on this, but I don't really agree when people are saying, and this, I was just getting absolutely blasted in the comments for it, of like, oh, why are you focusing on this? Well, because it's fucking important. If there's compromise in the government, then it's really important, especially for that particular role, because, you know, a lot of this Maha movement is a big movement. All right, so Odenor for $7.77 says, communists that never lived in North Korea want communism. Funny. John Diner for $5 says, I DM'd you one of Dave's debates already against Joel Berry, the Babylon Bee editor. Absolutely destroyed him. I'll check that out for sure. Rev Mischa says, I'm distributing my wealth in effort to send Haas to the gulag. John Diner for $5 says, like Dave versus Mike Jones would be a perfect debate. IP needs to be schooled on the reality of using power for policy. IP internet, that's Inspiring Philosophy, by the way, guys, for those of you who don't know. IP is a very busy man. I'm tentatively lining up one with him for July against a Muslim. He's not that interested in debating other Christians. I would also like to see that, but I think that he has his priorities elsewhere at the moment. which is, understandable. People come at me to do various different debates quite often, and I also have to turn them down sometimes because I'm like, it's going to require a whole different level of study for me. So I can understand it. John Donnan for $5 says, also AIPAC helped Trump get elected. Trump needs to give back to his donors, hence RFK saying anti-Semitism equals health crisis, quid pro quo, essentially. Yeah, I mean, there is definitely an element of that. And, Trump is somebody who took a lot of money from the Adelsons, and he is very, pro-Israeli. He's very friendly towards the Israelis. He also just imposed a big tariff on the Israelis. So that's another thing to think about. And he said it to Benjamin Netanyahu's face, to his face, and that we're not going to go back on that tariff as well. So 17% tariff, and then the Israelis had to come to the table and say, actually, you know what, we're willing to, lower our tariffs on America to keep free trade growing. So I look at Trump as a pragmatist in this regard. A lot of people look at Trump and they say, oh, Israeli Zionist shill. I don't really see it that way myself. I think that he has taken a lot of money from the Adelsons, and people take various different amounts of money from people and from different organizations, and you do sort of need that in the world of politics, even though Trump is a rich guy. But I don't see him as this shill. I see him as a pragmatist, and he knows the art of the deal. And obviously, AIPAC and the Israel lobby is deeply entrenched in American politics. And if you want to completely go against that absolute behemoth, then you're going to have some real problems. So if Trump is looking at it from a pragmatic standpoint, purely pragmatic, you can kind of understand why he goes down that path. Malibu Angel for $2 says, thank you for the great stream and content today. Thank you, Malibu Angel. Always appreciate seeing that Malibu ocean in the streams. Donna for $5 says, appreciate the content. Like you as a mod, want to see you debate more. Well, I've been doing a few debates. Have you seen them recently, Donna? I did 2 last week. The thing is, unlike a lot of people, guys, when I debate, I actually like to take it really seriously, and I like to prepare properly, and I like to make sure that I'm never a fucking no-show like that woman last week. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I was meant to do a one-on-one with that not-so-erudite girl, and a no-show. And if someone hasn't died in the family, then or if you haven't got some sort of a crippling injury, then I can't really see a good excuse for a no-show. 5 more super chats to go before the goal. Let's hit it, guys. Yes, let's hit it, guys. And if maybe a few memberships. I don't know if you guys know this, but now in terms of the memberships, we have got lots of exclusive content for members only. So if you go to the members only part of our channel, we've got all of the old videos that we've put up that are too spicy for YouTube, some of the ones that get demonetized, like some of the old Tommy Robinson debates, for example. We've got a bunch of podcasts on there that are just purely exclusive for members. And we have all of these types of streams. The debates I'm going to keep up for public view, but then like the chill streams and like the debate reviews and all of those sorts of things. And when I'm reviewing my own debates, etc., that's all going to be members only. So Donna says, that's the problem. No shows. Exactly right. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm just reading through the comments now about the whole RFK situation. Because honestly, like, there is a real conspiracy about the death. Like, we just put this in a way that is YouTube friendly, but about the death of RFK's father and the circumstances around that. And some people have gone into depth about that, and also the death of RFK's uncle and who might be involved in that. And the fact that, the Kennedys are people who get watched very closely because they are people who tend to ruffle the feathers a little bit. And we do know that RFK did have a background of, drug abuse, heroin abuse, and he has had a background of sexual impropriety. Everybody has, pretty much these days. And if they're going to use something to hold over their heads, then it's going to be those things. So with a background of drug use and sexual impropriety, you can imagine there might be some things there that RFK would really not want getting out. However, in the modern day, it's like, who the hell doesn't get stitched up? Who doesn't get stitched up at some point if you're rattling the cage for some chick you banged 15 years ago, Coming out and saying, oh, I'm a victim. Yeah, right. So we're going to see what happens, but, it is something to keep your eye on. I think that the crux of the story is that like there are some people out there, very powerful people, who RFK is really going against their interests and some serious financial interests. So would it surprise you at all if they had some sort of a blackmail? And then he's only human, you know? If he's got some like crazy sexual stuff out there, then, you know, he probably doesn't want it getting out. And you don't know what to what extent they can be blackmailed and how that even works. So I think it's a really interesting story at the very least, and something that we should keep our eyes on and definitely not dismiss. All right, we have got Dylan Biddle for $2 says, use Streamlabs, hate giving Google 30%. Yeah, true. I really should set something like that up. That gives me that. You've actually given me a kick up the bum there, Dylan. I need to get onto that this week because other guys have that. And then the fact that YouTube takes 30% is pretty criminal, actually. John Dinan gives 5 Rattlesnake TV memberships. So he's just allowed 5. John Dinan is a generous man, a gentleman and a scholar, and he's just allowed 5 lucky Rattlesnake TV members to be able to access all of that exclusive content up there. And Dironima for $5 says, who's the top person you want to debate? That's a good question. If you guys have any questions for Super Chats, I'm going to stick around for a little while longer. Anything that you've ever wanted to ask me, you can ask me right now, whatever it is. Top person that I want to debate. I would love to get into a Tim Pool's culture war and debate that little Luke Beasley kid. That would be a good one. I'd really enjoy that. Luke Beasley, I would really like to get in there with a guy like Dean Withers as well, or Parker, or one of those streamers. Harry Sisson would probably Harry Sisson's probably number one, to be honest. But it's hard to actually have debates with people who are so disingenuous, just so thoroughly disingenuous to their core, like Harry Sisson, for example, because that kid will just say whatever the hell the party line is. Like we saw him when Joe Biden was running saying Joe Biden is sharp as a tack, you know. He's a complete and utter grifter. He's the absolute definitional embodiment of a complete grifter. So, yeah, I mean, it would be fun to tangle with guys like that, with Harry Sisson, for example. But, like, the grift is real, guys. The grift is really, really real. So, I don't know. Top people I'd like to debate, probably Harry Sisson, Luke Beasley. I think Luke Beasley at least would be a little bit more good faith, and he does really sort of, like, he has really, I don't know if he is actually a homosexual, but he has some very homosexual mannerisms that I find quite cringeworthy. But, yeah, Luke Beasley would be a fun one to debate about culture, about just cultural issues and just sort of take him out at the knees. People ask why I wear glasses now. I see a lot of these. Why are you bald, Jake? Why are you wearing glasses? Well, first of all, it's not a looks contest, guys. It's not a looks contest. I'm bald at the moment because I find it extremely comfortable. Like I've just got the sunshine on my head at the moment, which is really, really quite comfortable. I got a little bit of a, maybe I'll go get a Turkish hairline at some stage, guys. Get rid of that hairline. But bald from comfort, maybe I'll grow it back at some stage. I don't know. But this is very convenient. And I actually don't mind it. I've been quite liking the bald head. So, and then glasses, it's because I wear blue light glasses. I'm staring at screens and staring at lights. And if you guys don't wear blue light glasses and you look at a screen a lot, then please, like, start wearing them. Because if you ever get that feeling when your corneas are burning, when you stare at a screen for so long, that's because your corneas are burning, because your eyes are burning. But when you get the blue light glasses, it stops that from happening. And I literally can't look at a screen for more than 5 minutes without my blue light glasses at the moment. So I actually don't need glasses. I might at some stage. I think my vision's fine, but it's because the blue light glasses are so effective. So if you guys don't have blue light glasses, don't make fun of me about it. You guys need to get your own blue light glasses and then get back to me, okay? Isaac Hayes for $8 says, when will your next visit to Australia be? You know, I actually got invited to a wedding in a month's time, which I might go to, by my friend. Have you guys ever seen, if you guys may have seen, it's a bit of a wild one, but have you ever seen Christ in the Culture, the YouTube channel, Christ in the Culture? He's like a newer guy, Orthodox Christian, has a really big Instagram account. And I've been helping him with getting monetized and helping him with his with his like intro for his show and everything like that. And he's a really cool guy. And he's invited me to his wedding, which is an Orthodox Christian wedding in a month's time. So I'm actually thinking about going to Sydney for that. Might be cool. Go see some churches over there and everything. I've not spent much time in Sydney, so I'm really thinking about that. And Malibu Angel says to help complete the goal today. And Malibu Angel coming in clutch as per usual, finishing off that 50 goal. Really appreciate that, Malibu Angel. So that's 50, guys. The doors are always open. My palms can be greased more if you guys wanted to do that. If you guys were thinking of gifting some memberships or something, then you could do that. Because we do love seeing those emojis flying in the chat. But yeah, so I'm thinking about going to that wedding. It's in a month's time. It would be a few days out. And I know that my older brother's going to be in Sydney at that time because he's got himself a new girlfriend, a new woman in Sydney. And he's going to be there with his woman. And I should go and meet her at some stage and hang out with those two. So could go back to Oz at some point. It means I'd have to take a few days off content. And you guys know I don't like leaving. But I could live stream there, you know. I could bring my little camera set up and just do a live stream or two there. So Bali to Sydney, it's like 5 hours or so, I think. We could get it going. Straight Rippin' 93 for $5 says, how do you counter a debater that just wants to spend money and virtue signal? That just wants to spend money and virtue signal. What do you mean by spend money, Straight Rippin'? But virtue signal, I mean, you just call them out on it. You just say that's a virtue signal. Cool, nice virtue signal, but what's your actual argument? Yeah, okay, that's nice. You must be I'm happy you're such a nice person, but what's the argument? Just call them out on the logic of it, because it's a fallacy. If you're just sitting there aggrandizing yourself at the moment, it's just a fallacy. So, John Dinan for $5. And guys, congratulations, John Dinan, in becoming a protector of the realm today, becoming a guardian of the kingdom and becoming a moderator. I think he'll do a fine job. Sometimes you get those spurgs that come in that just need to be banned, you know, and we do not stand for free speech on this platform. I am absolutely not in favor of free speech in this Rattlesnake TV chat at all. So if people are going to come in and spurg, and if you have constructive criticism and even criticism of me, whatever, that's fine. But if you're going to come in and just spurg and write heaps of messages saying, oh, this is like you retarded, blah, 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 then you can fuck right off. Because we have a thriving, bustling community over here and a great chat, and we have a lot of fun. Whenever I go to different chats, I always feel like going to sleep. The Crucible chat's awesome. And then this chat's great. But others just don't do it like us, unfortunately, guys. So that's why we get rid of spurgs, because it kills the quality. John says for $5, DM'd you the Dave Green debate. Also need your help on something private. You might be able to give me advice on politics related. Mind helping? Yeah, man. DM me. Always happy to chat. Waghira for $5 says, Jake is not wrong. Get the glasses, shave your head. Even if you have hair, it's fantastic. Get a hat, bro. Do I need a hat? Guys, give me... do I need a hat? Y, yes, and N, no. Because I actually don't think that my peanut is too bad, you know. The back there gets a little bit sort of like bulky. But I was going for like Brad Pitt Fight Club, but turned out more the Buddha in some ways. But you got, you know, can pat my belly and stuff. That's actually not a bad idea by Duck Buffalo there. It says Crucible hat or your own brand hat. But I'm not really much of a hat man. If I wear headphones, it burns the top of my head now, so I might need it in that regard. And Cool V1C says shave your arms. Got a good channel over there, Cool V1C. I've been seeing some of your videos recently, man. You're doing good stuff, covering some of my debates over there. Vinny, you can go fuck yourself, says can't polish a turd. I should just go beat Vinny up. Like he's literally outside my door right now and he's talking shit and I'm his older brother. There should be a respect of authority taking place here. I should just go and, should I just go beat Vinny up right now, guys? Let me know if I should just go beat Vinny up. I think I should. Like where the fuck is the respect, you know? Like where is the respect for authority? I'm your older brother. No, the sad part is that Vinny could probably give me a wedgie these days. You know? Get out. Get out. He's trying to come in. He's trying to flex on me. You know, don't you guys miss the days if you're an older brother? Like, you miss the days when you could just fuck your brother up. Just get in there and just hold him down, pin his arms down, and just... I miss those days. And then they grow up and like they get all big and strong and you can't do it anymore. Like, I used to beat the fuck out of Vinny. When Mum used to go out, Vinny used to be like, "No, Mum, don't go out," because he knew that what I was going to do, I was going to take... We had one of those trampolines with the nets going around it in a circle like that. So it was pretty much a UFC cage. And I used to get the boxing gloves and I used to put the boxing gloves on him and put the boxing gloves on me and make him full on punch on with me. And I'm 6 years older than him. So he was this little guy, but it made him tough. You know what I mean? It made him tough, which is why I can't beat him up anymore. $8. Isaac Hayes says, "Bought your merch and it's great. Would take a hat too." Do we not have hats on there? I appreciate you buying that merch though, Isaac. I was just saying before in the in the Not One Step Back podcast that Andrew that Reality Based store might need to go American made with these tariffs, guys. We might need to go to an American manufacturer with all these tariffs. So what's everyone saying? You beat Vinny up? No one is even... Anyways. Yeah, we had the pussy net on the trampoline. No, the net was great on the trampoline. I was a bit autistic as a child. Vinny says we have a lot of hats. We do have a lot of hats. So I was a bit autistic when I was younger, and I used to, I used to play with myself a lot. It wouldn't have sounded good, but I said it anyway. But I used to play a lot of games that only involved myself. And basically what I'd do is I'd get on the trampoline and I'd play soccer, and there'd be the nets like this, and I'd have like a goal on either side, and I'd pretend to be both teams. And my parents would watch me and be like, "He's retarded. Our son is retarded." So that was tough for them. That was a tough time for them watching that. I used to have this other game where I would get lots of golf balls and I would throw them like this is level 20 retardation, autistic kid, parents disappointed, everything. And I'd get these golf balls, different colored golf balls, and I would throw them around the trampoline, and I would like do all these laps, and like it was like they were race cars, and then eventually like there'd be like a winner. Who the fuck knows what was going? Like, if I saw my kid doing that, I'd genuinely send him to Dagestan. I would send him to Dagestan, and I'd be like, "We need to make a man out of this kid, because he's just he's a few chips short of your full bag." You know what I mean? Yeah. Rev says, "Did you win?" I don't even know how to answer that. I think I always won. But yeah, I was speaking to my mum about this the other day, and she was saying like she was saying that she thought it was like a sign of being intelligent. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's sure that's what you thought." Olin says 76. Why are you telling us this? Because I fucking want to. Because we're just talking shit with the chat. That's why. Anyway, gosh, what were we talking? How did I get onto that tangent? Ellen's probably has a good point there. Why the fuck am I telling you that? Anyways, if any of you guys have any more questions about my childhood, you can let me know now. I'm gonna stick around for another minute or two, and then we're gonna head off. So, been nearly 2.5 hours here. It was a great debate tonight between Halsey and Haas. Been wanting to get that happening for a while, and like I said, we've got more debates coming up, and I'm going to be doing a few myself in the coming weeks. I think we've got a secular humanism one coming up. We're going to try and reschedule the feminism one with Not So Erudite, which would be interesting. KCO says, you are more of a reserved, analytical, silent type, I think, right, Jake? Yeah, I'd say so. I tend to keep to myself. Like I'm at the gym at the moment in Bali, and I pretty much just keep to myself, do my training and my recovery and all that sort of stuff, and talk to people here and there. But it's like Love Island at the gym, you know. You go there and everyone's like all like fucking having sex with each other and dating each other and stuff. And when I'm not doing all the content and politics and all of that, I just want to go somewhere and just chill and just, you know, spend a lot of time reading in my room and everything. So, you know, I've taught myself over the years to be out there as well. I think when we were at DebateCon, I was having a great time hanging out with everyone, all the Crucible crew and Rattlesnake TV subscribers and stuff. Malibu says, will you have Candace on your podcast one day? If she comes on, yeah, I'd love to have Candace on. We'd actually have more disagreements than you guys think. People think I'm a big Candace shill, but we'd have more disagreements than you guys think. Geronima says, are you into any martial arts? Yes, I've been into martial arts for years. I started when I was 19, moved to London. I was 110 kilos, a big fat boy. And then I met my boxing coach, and for the next 3 years, I lost like 30 kilos, started boxing, and then I had my first fight when I was 23 and had two fights in a big exhibition hall, which was fun. All of my friends came along, and I won them both. So me and Floyd Mayweather are both undefeated. And my older brother has had, I think, 4 kickboxing fights, and he's won them all as well. So our family is actually undefeated, and next Vinny has to do something and be undefeated as well, because if he loses, he's basically going to be excommunicated from the family. So yeah, I do a lot of kickboxing. My back's a bit fucked at the moment though, so I need to get back into that at some stage, but I don't want to rush into it too much. But yes, thoroughly enjoy my martial arts. Yeah. All right, guys. So thank you very much for everyone joining me today. Appreciate you guys all coming along. We had a great debate. We had a good chat. You guys learnt about my autism as a child and all of that good stuff. So appreciate you all. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.